I watched FBI agents handcuff my son in a Charleston courtroom while 200 witnesses stared in silence. The same son who'd blocked me from my own hotel 3 weeks earlier, who'd told security my name wasn't on the guest list, who'd tried to have me declared incompetent so he could steal the $65 million empire my late husband and I built over 35 years. He looked at me across that courtroom, his mother, the woman he'd planned to institutionalize and rob, and I didn't flinch. I just nodded to the federal prosecutor. By that afternoon, my son was facing 18 years in prison, and I'd reclaimed everything he thought he'd taken. But to understand how I got to that courtroom, I need to take you back 3 weeks earlier, to a June morning that started like any celebration should. This story starts quietly, but it won't leave you unchanged. Before we begin, leave a comment and tell me, have you ever faced a betrayal from someone you trusted completely? Your perspective matters here. Just a quick note, some details are fictionalized for storytelling and reflection. The heart of the story, the message, is what I hope stays with you. At 65, I had learned to read faces from behind a hotel desk for 40 years. But I never learned to read the moment my own son would lock me out of my granddaughter's wedding. The taxi pulled up to the Magnolia House entrance on a June evening that smelled of magnolias and champagne promises. I clutched the velvet box in my lap, my late husband Walter's diamond bracelet, the one I'd saved for Elodie since she was born. The hotel glowed like a jewelry box itself, every window lit, jazz piano drifting through the warm Charleston air. 200 guests in silk and summer wool streamed through the entrance, and I felt that old professional pride watching them move through those doors. Beautiful venue, perfect night for a wedding. "Big night, ma'am," the driver asked, helping me out. "My granddaughter," I said, smoothing my modest blue dress. Not expensive, but clean and pressed. 25 today and getting married. I walked toward the entrance, and that's when I saw him. My son Brent, 40 years old and still living off the trust fund his father left him, stood blocking the hotel entrance with cold eyes I no longer recognized. Tailored charcoal suit, Italian shoes, expression like polished granite. He didn't move when I approached, didn't smile, just stood there, and the warmth drained from my chest. "Darling," I said, reaching to embrace him, "I'm so happy to—" "Mother?" He stepped directly into my path. "You're not on the guest list." The words hit like a slap. Behind him, the lobby sparkled with flowers and candlelight. I could see guests greeting each other, champagne glasses catching the light. My granddaughter somewhere inside, preparing to walk down an aisle I wouldn't see. "What? There must be some mistake. Elodie invited me months ago." "There's no mistake." His voice carried that particular flatness wealthy people use when dismissing service staff. "You need to leave." How does a mother respond when her child treats her like a stranger at a velvet rope? Simone appeared beside him, then my daughter-in-law, at 38, who had perfected the art of manufactured concern during her years as an interior designer staging homes for wealthy clients. She wore emerald silk that cost more than my monthly rent. Her hand rested on Brent's arm, proprietary and warning. "Get her out of here before people start asking questions," she whispered to him, but I heard it. Meant to hear it. I looked past them into the lobby. 200 faces had turned toward the entrance, toward me. Every single person watching the shabby old woman being turned away. I saw pity in some expressions, embarrassment in others. That particular brand of secondhand shame that comes from witnessing someone else's humiliation. For 40 years, I'd watched wealthy guests dismiss service workers with that exact expression, that mix of discomfort and relief that it was happening to someone else, not them. "Of course," I heard myself say, voice steady as ice. "I understand. Enjoy your evening." I turned before they could see my face change. Walked back down those steps with my head high and my hand steady on the velvet box I was still clutching. Behind me, conversation resumed. The wedding would continue. My granddaughter would marry without me. The freezing June evening air cut through my thin coat as I walked toward the street. Behind me, the hotel doors closed with a soft, expensive click. And then I saw it. The small brass nameplate on the security guard's uniform pinned just above his breast pocket. Derek Rhodes, Security Chief. I recognized that name because I had personally hired him 8 years ago, back when I still paid attention to staffing decisions for the hotels I secretly owned through a trust my son knew nothing about. Someone had been running my hotel, and I didn't even know it yet. The guard's footsteps behind me were hesitant, apologetic, the walk of a man caught between duty and conscience. "Mrs. Hewitt, please, I need to apologize." I turned in the dim parking area. Derek Rhodes, the security guard in his mid-40s, had the weathered hands of a former construction worker and the grateful loyalty of a man who remembered kindness. He'd removed his cap and stood there clutching it, looking miserable. "You were doing your job," I said quietly. "No, ma'am," he shook his head. "I was following orders I knew were wrong. Your son told me specifically to turn you away if you showed up. Had it written on his phone, your name right there on a list." "But this is—" He stopped himself, jaw working. "This is still your hotel, isn't it?" The question hit me like cold water. My hotel. Yes. The pieces were there in my memory, scattered like dropped change. I'd been too grief-stricken to gather. Walter and I had built this place, the Magnolia House. Our flagship property in Charleston opened 15 years ago when we were still young enough to believe in legacies. "You gave me this job when I needed it most," Derek continued, after my injury ended my construction career. "I came in for that interview 8 years ago, and you sat there asking about my daughters, about whether the insurance was covering my rehab. You remembered my name every time you visited after that." I did remember now. The fog of grief was lifting, revealing shapes I'd let myself forget. After Walter died, I'd stepped back from day-to-day operations. Trusted Brent to handle the management companies, the bookkeeping, the staffing decisions. Trusted him because he was my son, and because the crushing weight of widowhood had made me tired of making decisions. "I remember," I said. "You had excellent references, and you've done good work here." "Your son gave the orders tonight," Derek said carefully. "But I want you to know, a lot of us remember who really built this place. Who really cares about it? How many other things had I forgotten while grief clouded the past 2 years?" "Thank you, Derek." I touched his arm briefly. "You did what you had to do. I understand." He nodded, replaced his cap, and walked back toward the entrance. I watched him go, my mind working through the implications. Brent giving orders. Brent with a list of people to bar. Brent treating his own mother like an unwanted guest at a property she owned. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw it. The brass plaque beside the entrance, gleaming under the streetlight. The management company logo. I'd walked past it on my way in, too focused on the wedding to notice. But now, standing in the parking lot with anger clearing the grief haze from my brain, I saw what had changed. That wasn't our logo. Walter and I had chosen the design ourselves, an elegant magnolia bloom intertwined with our initials, rendered in brushed bronze. Simple, timeless, ours. This new emblem was corporate, generic. Sharp angles and sans serif letters spelling out a company name I didn't recognize. Someone had removed our mark and replaced it with this stranger's brand. Walter had always said, "Watch the details. The small changes reveal the big thefts." I pulled out my phone and photographed the plaque, my hands steady despite the fury building in my chest. The velvet box with Elodie's bracelet was still in my purse. I'd come here tonight to give my granddaughter a family heirloom. Instead, I discovered someone was stealing my family's legacy. The new logo gleamed under the streetlight, a corporate emblem I'd never seen before, mounted where Walter's and my carefully chosen magnolia design should have been. Someone hadn't just locked me out of a wedding. They were erasing me from my own legacy, and I needed to know exactly how deep this went. I gave the taxi driver my address and pulled out my phone with hands that had stopped shaking rage burns steadier than fear. The city lights streamed past the windows as we headed away from the hotel district. I still clutched the velvet box with Elodie's bracelet, but my mind was already 3 steps ahead, connecting dots I'd been too grief-fogged to notice. The redirected mail. 3 months ago. Brent had suggested updating my address with the bank for security, The screened phone calls Simone mentioning she'd been helping filter telemarketers from my landline. Brent's sudden interest in the trust paperwork, asking careful questions about Walter's estate planning, about my memory, about whether I was managing okay on my own. Walter's voice echoed in my head, clear as if he were sitting beside me in the taxi. Trust the pattern, not the explanation. The pattern was theft. The explanation had been concern. "Tough night, ma'am," the driver asked, watching me in the rearview mirror. "You have no idea," I said quietly. I scrolled through my phone to Desmond Thornton's number. 58, and my late husband's estate attorney for 2 decades. He answered on the second ring despite the late hour. "Constance, it's nearly 8:30. What's wrong?" "Check Walter's trust accounts," I said. "All of them, right now." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds, long enough for a good attorney to know when a client is serious. "Give me 2 minutes. Stay on the line." I heard keyboard clicks, mouse movements, the particular quiet of a man accessing confidential files from his home office. The taxi turned onto my street, rows of modest apartment buildings glowing with warm windows. My own building looked dark on the 3rd floor. "I'm pulling them up now," Desmond said. His voice had shifted from concerned friend to careful professional. "Walk me through what happened tonight," I told him. The wedding blocking, Derek's apology, the changed logo on the hotel I'd helped build with Walter 35 years ago. Walter used to say, "Embezzlement is like termites. You notice the hole only after the foundation's been eaten." "Constance." Desmond's voice dropped to that measured tone lawyers use when delivering bad news. "There have been transfers. Multiple, starting 3 months ago." The taxi pulled up outside my building. I paid the driver, stepped onto the sidewalk, staring up at my dark windows. "How much?" "We need to meet in person. 7 a.m., my office. Don't tell anyone you're coming." "Desmond, how much?" I heard him exhale slowly. "Enough that I'm looking at federal wire fraud territory. Enough that whoever has power of attorney knew exactly what they were doing." Power of attorney. The words hit like a fist. I'd signed those papers 3 months ago when Brent had explained it was just standard planning for elderly parents. He'd brought a notary to my apartment, made it all seem routine, loving, protective. There's a particular kind of cold that comes from realizing your child has been robbing you while kissing your cheek. "I never gave him permission for withdrawals," I said. "The power of attorney was for medical decisions if I became incapacitated." That's what he told me. "We'll sort it out tomorrow morning." Desmond's voice was gentle but firm. "Bring any paperwork you have. Bank statements, the POA documents, anything related to the trust. Don't access your accounts online tonight if someone's monitoring them. We don't want to tip our hand." "Understood." "Constance, before you go inside, is there anyone else who has keys to your apartment?" I looked up at my dark windows on the 3rd floor. Only Brent. Desmond's silence spoke volumes. "Change your locks tonight," he said finally. "Or better yet, stay somewhere else, a hotel. Use cash, not credit cards." "I'm not running from my own son." "You're not running. You're protecting your position before the fight." He paused. "Constance, if what I'm seeing in these accounts is accurate, this isn't a family dispute. This is organized theft. Treat it like war, because that's what they've already declared." I didn't change the locks that night. Instead, I sat in my apartment thinking about war strategies and wondering when exactly I'd armed my enemy. 3 months before my son locked me out of that wedding, I handed him the weapon he would use to destroy me. It was a Thursday morning in August, sticky heat already climbing by 10 o'clock. I sat in Walter's old reading chair, drinking coffee and missing my husband with the kind of ache that doesn't fade, just settles deeper. 2 years gone, and I still couldn't bring myself to move his books. His reading lamp. The worn leather ottoman where he'd prop his feet. Brent arrived unannounced, knocking twice before using his key. "Mom, I'm glad you're home. We have a situation." He looked stressed, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled, carrying a leather portfolio that seemed too heavy for its size. Unusual for my always composed son, the one who'd inherited Walter's precision and cool head. "What's wrong? Is Elodie all right?" Everyone's fine. He set the portfolio on the dining table with a decisive thump. But I need your signature today. It's about protecting the estate. My stomach dropped. Estate protection. Those were Walter's words. The language he'd used when explaining his meticulous trust structures. The safety nets he'd built for me. What happened? Brent pulled out papers, spreading them across the table with practiced efficiency. Charleston County is implementing a new property tax assessment. It targets elderly homeowners and trust beneficiaries, widows specifically. You could lose 30% of the estate value in reassessment penalties. The words hit like cold water. Walter had spent years building that estate. The hotel properties, the careful investments that were supposed to keep me comfortable. Grief is a thief's best ally. It makes you grateful for anyone who offers to carry your burden. But Walter set everything up properly. This is new legislation. Mom, Dad couldn't have predicted it. The county council passed it last month. Brent's voice carried that particular blend of urgency and patience children use when explaining complicated things to aging parents. I've been working with estate planners to create a protective fund. It shields your assets from the reassessment, preserves what Dad built. He pulled out more documents, pointing to highlighted sections filled with words like beneficiary protection, tax-advantaged restructuring, fiduciary oversight. I don't understand all this legal language. You don't need to. That's why you have me. He smiled that warm, reassuring smile that reminded me so much of Walter. I'm trying to protect what he left you, what he left us. He guided me to Walter's old desk, the mahogany surface still bearing the ring stains from my husband's coffee cup. Placed papers in front of me, pen already uncapped. Just need your signature on these 3 pages, standard trust protection documents. I hesitated, hand hovering over the first signature line. Shouldn't I read the full? It's standard trust protection language. Desmond helped draft it. Desmond, our family attorney, Walter's oldest friend. If Desmond approved, if Brent said it was necessary, I signed my name in Walter's chair. At Walter's desk, betraying everything Walter had built to protect me. 3 signatures, 3 pages, 3 months before I'd understand what I'd actually done. If you and Desmond both approve, that's good enough for me, I said, handing back the pen. Brent gathered the signed papers with visible relief, tucking them carefully into the portfolio. He kissed my forehead, dutiful, loving, protective. You did the right thing, Mom. Dad would be proud you're being proactive about this. As he left, I noticed something I wouldn't remember until 3 months later. Standing outside that wedding in the cold, the notary seal in the corner of the top document wasn't from Desmond's office. It belonged to a company I'd never heard of called Apex Fiduciary Solutions. That name would haunt me when I finally understood what I'd signed. I didn't question that notary seal, not then. I filed the papers away in Walter's desk and went back to my grief and my quiet apartment, trusting that my son was protecting me. A month after I signed away my financial security, Simone arrived at my door with tears that should have been my second warning. It was a Tuesday afternoon in September, the kind of sticky heat that makes Charleston feel like it's wrapped in wet wool. I was folding laundry when the knock came hesitant, almost apologetic. Simone stood in the hallway clutching a tissue, mascara artfully smudged just enough to look authentic but not clownish. Her voice caught on precisely calculated words. I'm so sorry to bother you. I just didn't know who else to talk to. My stomach dropped. What's wrong? Is it Elodie? She made me promise not to tell you, but I can't keep this from you anymore. Simone stepped inside when I held the door open, sinking onto my sofa with the graceful distress of a woman who'd rehearsed this scene. I made tea because that's what you do when your daughter-in-law arrives in tears. Chamomile with honey. Walter's old blue mugs that I still couldn't bring myself to pack away. Tell me what's happening, I said, sitting across from her. Simone dabbed at her eyes. Elodie's been having panic attacks about the wedding. She's terrified that a large event will strain your health after what happened to Walter. She's scared of losing you, too. The words hit like a physical blow. Walter's heart attack had been sudden, devastating. The thought of Elodie carrying that fear, of my granddaughter lying awake worrying about me. My doctor says I'm perfectly healthy. But she's so scared. Simone leaned forward, urgent and confidential. She wants a simple backyard dinner instead. 20 people maximum. Something small and intimate that won't exhaust you. The cruelest manipulation uses your own love as the weapon they convince you that caring means stepping back. She's worried the stress of planning might trigger, heart problems, like Walter had. Simone's voice dropped to a whisper on Walter's name, knowing exactly where to press. I set down my tea before my shaking hands could spill it. I don't want her living in fear. If she wants something small, that's just it. Simone's tears came faster now, right on cue. She feels guilty even suggesting it. She knows you've been dreaming of a big celebration, but she's terrified of what it might do to your health. She shouldn't worry about me. This is her day. Would you mind if Brent and I handled everything? Simone reached across to touch my hand, so she doesn't have to stress about whether you're overexerting yourself. We could keep it very simple, very quiet, just family and a few close friends. I should have called Elodie right then. Should have asked to hear these concerns from her own mouth. To hold my granddaughter and promise her I was fine. That she didn't need to sacrifice her wedding day for me. Why didn't I ask to speak with Elodie directly, to hear these concerns from her own mouth? But Simone was sitting there looking so genuinely distressed. And the thought of my granddaughter carrying that fear alone? It broke something in me. If it helps her feel better, of course, I'll stay completely out of the planning. Simone's face brightened with what I thought was relief. You're such a wonderful grandmother. She's so lucky to have you. She hugged me before leaving, still dabbing her eyes. I stood at the window, watching her walk to her car, feeling proud of my selflessness. Proud that I could give my granddaughter this gift of not worrying about me. I didn't see her pull out her phone before the car door even closed. Didn't know she was texting Brent from the hallway. Phase 2 complete. She's completely isolated now. Start booking the hotel. The wedding I thought would be 20 people was already becoming something I'd never recognize. Simone's text message haunted me for weeks, but I had no proof. Just a mother's instinct that something felt wrong. 6 weeks before the wedding, my son decided I needed a doctor's evaluation, not for my health, but for his plan. Mom, we've been worried about you, Brent said one Tuesday morning in mid-October, appearing at my apartment with Simone at 8:15. You've seemed forgetful lately. We scheduled an appointment with a specialist. I'm not forgetful, I protested. I'm sharper than most people half my age. Simone touched my arm with manufactured concern. Mrs. Hewitt, you forgot Elodie's recital last month. You called me Laura twice at dinner. I hadn't forgotten any recital, there hadn't been one, and I'd never called her Laura. But the certainty in her voice made me question my own memory. The drive to Dr. Lyle Upshaw's office took 40 minutes, deep into an industrial area near Hapeville, where medical practices don't typically locate. The building looked temporary, prefabricated metal siding. Parking lot half empty, no other tenants visible. Inside, the waiting room felt wrong immediately. Generic landscape prints on walls, chairs that didn't match. A reception desk with a computer still showing manufacturer stickers. The receptionist, a young woman who looked barely 20, seemed uncertain when I gave my name, searching through papers rather than a proper scheduling system. Mrs. Hewitt. Dr. Upshaw emerged after only 3 minutes. No real doctor's office runs that efficiently. He was 47. Tall and lean, with professionally whitened teeth and a tan that suggested more golf than medical rounds. I'm Dr. Lyle Upshaw. Come on back. His examination room matched the waiting area's temporary feeling. Equipment looked new but minimal. No diplomas on walls, just more generic art. He asked basic questions about my memory, my daily routines, my ability to manage finances. I built a hotel empire, I said firmly. I assure you, my cognitive function is excellent. He smiled without warmth. That's good to hear. Just a few simple tests. Midway through his memory assessment, reciting word lists. Drawing clock faces, his cell phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then stepped partially into the hallway. Yes, he said quietly. But I heard every word through the thin wall. The special consulting fee cleared yesterday. Don't worry, I'll provide whatever documentation you need. My stomach tightened. Special consulting fee. Documentation you need. The phrases meant something specific, something corrupt. But when he returned, I smiled and continued his pointless tests. I recited his word lists perfectly, drew his clock showing 3:15 without hesitation, answered every question with precision that made his jaw tighten slightly. "Well," he said after 20 minutes, frustration creeping into his professional tone, "you're in excellent cognitive health, Mrs. Hewitt. No signs of dementia, no memory impairment. You're sharp as a tack." In the waiting room. Brent and Simone looked up expectantly when we emerged. "Your mother's evaluation shows completely normal cognitive function," Dr. Upshaw announced. "No concerns whatsoever." I watched my son's face carefully. Instead of relief, I saw something else flash across his features. Disappointment. Raw, unmistakable disappointment. Simone's expression matched his. For just a moment, before she rearranged her face into false brightness, she looked furious. "That's wonderful news," Brent said flatly, the words hollow. They'd wanted a different result. They'd brought me here hoping Dr. Upshaw would find me incompetent, would provide documentation that I was mentally unfit. 3 months later, while Desmond investigated my financial situation, his paralegal discovered something chilling. Dr. Lyle Upshaw had lost his medical license in Virginia 3 years earlier for falsifying patient competency records in elder financial abuse cases. The silence in the car on the way home was the kind that comes when people are recalculating a failed plan. Brent drove with rigid shoulders, knuckles white on the steering wheel. I sat him back, watching his eyes in the rearview mirror. They never met mine. Simone occupied the passenger seat like someone who'd received devastating news. Though the news had been good, perfectly healthy, cognitively sharp. "I'm so relieved the doctor found nothing wrong," I said brightly. "You must be relieved too." "Mm-hmm." Brent's eyes stayed fixed on the road. Simone's phone lit up in her lap. She angled it away, typed rapidly, then deleted the entire message thread before my eyes. Her thumb moved with practiced efficiency. Select all, delete, confirm. 10 seconds later, another text arrived. Same pattern. Furious typing, immediate deletion. "Just processing," Simone said without looking up. "It's been a stressful morning." Stressful because I was healthy. The logic didn't track. She sent 4 more messages during the 20-minute drive, deleting each one the moment it's sent. Someone was waiting for updates. Someone who needed to know immediately that Dr. Upshaw's evaluation hadn't gone as planned. The frantic rhythm suggested urgency, reporting failure in real time to whoever was coordinating this. When did healthy become bad news in a family that claims to love you? We pulled up outside my apartment building at 11:30. Brent left the engine running. "Won't you come up?" I offered. "I'll make lunch." "We have appointments," Brent interrupted. "Another time." Simone was already out of the car, opening my door. "Take care of yourself. Constance." Not Mrs. Hewitt, not Mom, just Constance, the formality people use when creating distance. I climbed the 3 flights slowly, my knees reminding me of decades on hotel floors. Through my living room window, I had a clear view of the street below. Their car sat at the curb, unmoving. Brent's head dropped into his hands. Simon twisted toward him, gesturing sharply. I couldn't hear words, but body language needs no audio. She pointed back toward the building, toward where Dr. Upshaw's office would be. Her movements grew angrier. Brent lifted his head, said something short. She responded with what looked like rapid sentences, punctuated by a finger jabbed toward his chest. This wasn't concern. This was blame. 2 people whose carefully constructed plan had just collapsed, arguing about what went wrong. I stepped back from the window but kept watching. The argument continued for 3 minutes. Finally, Simone pulled out her phone, typed something long, showed it to Brent. He read it, nodded. She hit send. They drove away at 11:45. I stood in my small living room, the apartment I'd moved to after signing over the house. After Brent said the property taxes were too much and let myself think the thoughts I'd been avoiding. They'd been disappointed when Dr. Upshaw said I was healthy. Not relieved, disappointed. 40 years reading guests' micro-expressions at hotel check-ins taught me when someone's smile doesn't match their eyes, I just never wanted to use that skill on my own child. Why would they be angry that I'm healthy? I said aloud to my empty apartment. The answer came immediately. Unless they needed me to be sick. Unless they needed official documentation that I was incompetent, unable to manage my own affairs. The kind of diagnosis that would justify taking control of my assets, making medical decisions for me, declaring me unfit. They'd wanted Dr. Upshaw to find cognitive decline. They'd paid him that special consulting fee I'd overheard to provide whatever documentation they needed. When he couldn't falsify results on a woman who could recite word lists perfectly, their plan had failed. "No," I whispered. "That's insane. He's my son." But I stood at that window long after their car disappeared, replaying every moment of the past 3 months, the urgent power of attorney, the isolation from Elodie's wedding planning. Now this suspicious doctor visit. 3 separate incidents, or 3 connected steps in something larger. The answer was both 3 connected steps that became 17 blocked attempts to reach the one person who might have warned me. The last month before the wedding, I tried 17 times to contact my granddaughter, and 17 times Simone's voice answered instead. It started 3 days after the doctor's office visit. I called Elodie's cell to check on her, to ask if wedding planning was overwhelming her the way Simone claimed. The phone rang 6 times, then voicemail. I tried again that evening, voicemail again. The next morning, 3rd attempt, someone finally picked up. "Oh, Constance," Simone said brightly, answering Elodie's personal phone like it belonged to her. "Elodie's in the middle of venue meetings. Can I take a message?" My stomach tightened. "Just tell her I love her, and I'd like to hear her voice. Of course, she'll call when she has a moment to breathe." She never did. I waited 3 days before trying again. This time, Simone answered on the 2nd ring, her tone practiced and smooth. Elodie was on a work retreat in the mountains. Cell service was spotty. She'd call when she got back. A week later, new excuse, digital detox. Per her therapist's recommendation, no phones, no stress. "For 3 weeks?" I asked, hearing desperation creep into my voice. "I haven't heard from her in over a month." This is what loving grandmothers do. Constance. Simone interrupted gently. They give space when needed. I tried texting instead. Messages showed delivered, but never read. I tried emailing. Bounced back with an auto-reply. I knew Simone had written. Taking time away from digital communication to focus on self-care and wedding preparation. Will respond when able. Simone had taken complete control of my granddaughter's communications, not screening calls, but intercepting all contact, maintaining a perfect information quarantine between Elodie and the grandmother who'd raised her summers at the Magnolia House. Isolation is a cage built from your own good intentions. They convinced me the bars were kindness. Mid-November. I called again. Simone sighed before answering, patience wearing visibly thin. "She's traveling for business," she said. "Seattle, I think, or Portland." "When will she be back?" "I'm not her keeper, Constance." But she was. She'd positioned herself as gatekeeper to every form of contact, manufacturing contradictory excuses that should have raised red flags. Work retreat became digital detox, became business travel, became too overwhelmed to talk. Each story different, none quite tracking, all designed to normalize my complete isolation from Elodie. I should have pushed harder, should have driven to Elodie's apartment, shown up at her office, demanded to see her face to face. But I'd been raised to respect boundaries, to trust family, to believe that love sometimes means stepping back. I sat in that empty apartment and called it respect, called it space, called it love, never once calling it what it was. Imprisonment. 1 week before the wedding, I made my final attempt. "Constance," Simone answered, edge sharp in her voice now, mask slipping with impatience. "Your constant calling is exactly the stress we're trying to prevent." "I'm so sorry," I said immediately, apologizing for loving my granddaughter. I didn't mean to add pressure. "I'll wait for her to contact me." "That's very understanding of you." The line went dead. I sat alone in my small apartment, the one I'd moved to after Brent said the house taxes were too much, and told myself I was being a good grandmother. Giving space, reducing stress, being selfless. My acceptance of isolation as loving sacrifice was exactly what they needed. With me completely cut off from Elodie, the final weeks of whatever they were preparing at the Magnolia House could proceed without risk of accidental discovery. That was the state I was in when I arrived at the hotel, carrying Walter's jewelry, isolated, uninformed, perfectly positioned for the ambush they'd spent 3 months preparing. Now, sitting in Desmond's office the morning after being locked out, I finally understood every blocked call, every intercepted message, every manufactured excuse had been a brick in the wall they'd built between me and the truth. And tomorrow morning, I was going to tear that wall down. Tearing down walls starts with understanding exactly what was hidden behind them. Desmond's office door was already unlocked at 7 Saturday morning, and the documents covering his desk told me he'd been there all night hunting my son's tracks through my money. He looked up when I entered, still wearing yesterday's shirt, sleeves rolled to elbows, tie discarded somewhere hours ago. Coffee pot on the credenza sat empty. His legal pad showed a timeline connecting August's power of attorney signing to December's wedding blocking, arrows and question marks covering the margins. "I haven't stopped since you called last night," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down." I sat, hands folded in my lap, the way I'd taught myself during 40 years of difficult conversations with demanding guests. "How bad is it?" "Worse than I wanted to believe." He slid a highlighted bank statement across the mahogany surface. I recognized the account number immediately. Walter's Discretionary Retirement Trust. The fund he'd built specifically for my security after he died. The account we'd fed for 42 years. Every spare dollar from profitable seasons at the Magnolia House. The balance showed $127,000. I blinked, certain I was reading wrong. Last time I'd checked, months ago, before signing anything, the account held nearly $4 million. "Where's the rest?" My voice came out steady, despite my heart hammering. Desmond pointed to a single highlighted line. August 15th, electronic transfer, $3,500,000. $3.5 million, I said slowly, from my retirement account. "The account Walter specifically earmarked for your security after he died," Desmond confirmed. "Transferred the day after you signed the power of attorney. Authorization shows your signature alongside Brent's as co-trustee." "I never signed that." "I know, but the bank accepted it." $3.5 million, not a number on paper, but 42 years of Walter's work, our shared sacrifices. Every dollar meant to keep me safe after he was gone. Wedding costs might explain $50,000, maybe $100 if they'd gone extravagant. But $3.5 million? That wasn't wedding planning. That was embezzlement. That was my entire future, stolen in a single electronic transfer. Where did it go? Desmond pulled forward 3 more statements, each showing a different intermediary account. They moved it fast. First to an account at Wells Fargo, held there for 6 hours. Then to Bank of America, another 4 hours. Then to a final account at Palmetto Trust. Why move it so many times? To obscure the trail, make it harder to trace, harder to claw back. He tapped the final statement. The destination account belongs to a company called Gallagher Properties, LLC, real estate consulting, registered in South Carolina. Gallagher. The name hit me like cold water. Gallagher, I repeated. That's Simone's maiden name. I know. Desmond's jaw tightened. I pulled their incorporation papers. Filed August 11th, 3 days before you signed the power of attorney. 3 days before. While Brent was manufacturing urgency about property taxes, while he was rushing me to sign documents I didn't read, Simone was already registering the shell company that would receive my stolen retirement fund. They'd built their shell company the way spiders build webs before hunting, preparing the trap long before they drove me into it. This was premeditated, I said, the word tasting like poison. Weeks minimum, Desmond agreed, possibly months. The wedding might have been part of it, but this, he gestured to the money trail, this was always the primary goal. Financial extraction. I stared at the incorporation papers, seeing Simone's careful signature in the company registration box. Her handwriting, neat and precise, forming the letters of her maiden name above the line marked Principal Officer. They'd planned this, researched it, coordinated every step. The power of attorney, the shell company, the timing, the intermediary accounts. Nothing about this was impulse or opportunity. This was conspiracy, deliberate and calculated. If they took $3.5 million 3 months ago, I said slowly, what have they been spending it on? Desmond's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling up bank records that made my coffee turn to acid in my stomach. Gallagher Properties opened their business account at Palmetto Trust on September 2nd, he said, screen reflecting in his reading glasses. Your retirement funds arrived September 7th. First withdrawal occurred September 9th. 2 days, I said quietly. They waited 2 days after stealing my money to start spending it. Not spending, investing. Desmond scrolled through a long list of transactions. Look at the pattern. I leaned forward, reading the entries that chronicled the systematic dismantling of my life's savings. September 9th, 2025, $50,000, Coastal Carolina Legal Services. September 15th, 2025, $35,000, Apex Fiduciary Solutions. October 3rd, 2025, $85,000, Palmetto Design Group. October 28th, 2025. $45,000, Charleston Property Surveyors. November 15th, 2025. $200. 000, Atlantic Title and Escrow. November 20th, 2025. $120,000, The Magnolia House. Renovation Services. November 22nd, 2025. $85. 000, Palmetto Design Group. Wait. I touched the screen, finger trembling against the glass. They paid the Magnolia House $120,000 for what renovations? That's what the invoice description says, renovation services. But I would have known about renovations. I stopped, reality crystallizing. I wasn't working there anymore, was I? By November, they'd already pushed me out. Desmond's expression hardened. These weren't wedding expenses. Look at the vendors. Legal services, fiduciary consulting, property surveyors, title companies. This is real estate transaction infrastructure. When you've run a hotel for 40 years, you learn to read expense reports the way musicians read sheet music. The rhythm tells you everything. This rhythm was wrong. Wedding planners and caterers and florists should dominate a bride's budget. Instead, I was seeing the financial signature of property acquisition. Atlantic Title and Escrow, I said slowly. That's not a wedding vendor. No, Desmond opened a new window, typing rapidly. They handle real estate closings, commercial properties specifically. He pulled up a scanned document legal letterhead, dense paragraphs of whereas and hereinafter clauses. The impenetrable language of property law. I'd seen documents like this dozens of times when Walter and I had purchased the Magnolia House in 1984, when we'd refinanced in 1997, when we'd transferred ownership to our family trust in 2015. This was a quitclaim deed. Property description. The Magnolia House, 428 King Street, Charleston, South Carolina, including all structures, fixtures, and appurtenances thereto belonging. Granddaughter Whispering Pines Holdings, LLC, my family trust, the legal entity that owned the hotel. Grantee, Gallagher Properties, LLC. Transfer date, November 18th, 2025. I read it 3 times, words blurring together, brain refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. They tried to transfer the hotel, I whispered. They tried to steal the Magnolia House. Not tried. Look at the signature line. I looked, saw my name typed neatly above the line marked Granddaughter's signature, saw handwriting that looked almost right, but wrong in the slant, wrong in the pressure, wrong in 100 tiny ways. Only someone who'd signed her own name for 65 years would recognize. That's not my signature, I said. Voice shaking now, composure finally cracking. That's not my signature. Desmond! I know. He pointed to the notary seal at the bottom. Notarized by Apex Fiduciary Solutions. Same company that notarized your power of attorney. Same company that received $35,000 from Gallagher Properties 3 days before this deed was executed. They'd paid someone to witness a forged signature transferring a $65 million hotel from My Family Trust to Simone's shell company. The guardianship fraud, the fake psychiatric evaluation, the systematic isolation. None of it was about controlling an elderly woman's checkbook. It was about stealing her entire empire while she was legally declared too incompetent to stop them. The $120,000 to the Magnolia House. Desmond continued, voice tight with fury. That was payment for fake renovation invoices, creating paper trail to justify the transfer. Look professional, look legitimate. I stared at the forged deed, seeing 3 months of careful conspiracy laid bare in legal formatting. If this deed was recorded with Charleston County, Desmond said quietly, Constance, they might already legally own your hotel. Desmond promised to check county records immediately. I left his office knowing I couldn't sit still waiting for answers. I waited until I was alone in my apartment before opening my laptop, my fingers shaking as I entered the hotel management portal I'd built 30 years ago. The login screen appeared, familiar blue and gold colors, the Magnolia logo I'd designed myself. I typed credentials Brent didn't know existed, a master administrator account Walter and I had created in 1996. Buried deep in system architecture, untouched in the decades since his death. The screen blinked, then, welcome, administrator. Still active, I whispered to my empty living room. He never found the master account. I navigated to accounts payable, selected November 2025, and searched for transactions over $100,000. 3 results appeared. The third entry made my breath catch. Date November 20th. 2025. Vendor: The Magnolia House Event Services. Description: Premium Event Coordination Services, December Wedding. Amount: $120. 000.00. Approved by B. Hewitt Payment Method. Wire transfer to Gallagher Properties, LLC. I read the line 3 times. Premium Event Coordination Services. Not renovations, not repairs. Event coordination for a December wedding. The same wedding Simone swore in September would be small and intimate, held in someone's backyard, requiring no venue at all. The wedding she'd used to isolate me completely from Elodie, claiming my involvement would add stress. They'd charged $120,000 for coordinating an event at a hotel they were trying to steal. I clicked the invoice number, pulling up the full documentation. Standard hotel letterhead appeared, or what looked like standard letterhead. The Magnolia logo sat in the upper left corner, but something felt wrong about it. The petals were slightly different, the font not quite matching. Then I saw the billing address. The Magnolia House Event Services, 1847 Palmetto Commerce Drive, Unit 12, Charleston, SC 29405. Palmetto Commerce Drive, I said aloud, confusion sharpening to focus. That's not our address. The Magnolia House sat at 428 King Street. He should have occupied that address since 1887. I'd memorized every digit of our location, our tax parcels, our business licenses. Palmetto Commerce Drive meant nothing to me. I opened Google Maps in a new tab. Typed the address. Waited while satellite imagery loaded. The view showed an industrial park near the port. Low metal buildings. Gravel parking lots. Shipping containers stacked against chain-link fencing. No hotels, no event venues. Nothing remotely connected to hospitality services. I switched to Street View, virtually driving down Palmetto Commerce Drive until I found Unit 12. A single-story prefab building. Aluminum siding. Small windows. A door marked Virtual Office Suites, Mail Forwarding Services Available. The evidence was stacking up like cards in a house I was about to knock down. Virtual Office Suites, I whispered. Mail Forwarding Services. They hadn't just paid the Magnolia House for fake renovations. They'd created an entirely fictitious vendor, the Magnolia House Event Services, registered to a mail drop in an industrial park. designed to look legitimate enough to justify a six-figure wire transfer from my stolen trust funds to Simone's shell company. The invoice trail would appear clean to any casual auditor. Hotel pays event coordination company. Coordination company deposits payment. Business as usual. Except the event coordination company didn't exist. It was a ghost. A paper entity existing only to launder stolen money through fake invoices. They didn't just forge one signature, I said, staring at the fraudulent letterhead with its slightly wrong Magnolia logo. They forged an entire business. I scrolled down to the invoice footer, looking for registration details, business license numbers, anything that might reveal more about their operation. At the very bottom, in small gray text, I found it. The Magnolia House Event Services LLC Registered Agent, Apex Fiduciary Solutions, 1629 Meeting Street, Charleston, SC, 29405. Apex Fiduciary Solutions, the same notary service that had witnessed my power of attorney signature in August. The same company that had received $35,000 from Gallagher Properties 3 days before the forged hotel deed. The same entity that had notarized Dr. Upshaw's fraudulent psychiatric evaluation. They'd built an entire fake vendor network, and someone inside my own legal services was helping them do it. One notary company appearing in 3 separate fraud documents meant more than coincidence. It meant infrastructure. I ran the virtual office address through every corporate database I could access, following the registration trail like breadcrumbs, leading to something much bigger than fraud. The Magnolia House Event Services LLC showed a parent company, Palmetto Acquisitions Group, incorporated in Delaware, on August 4, 2025. 3 months before I'd signed the power of attorney. 3 months before any of this supposedly began. August, I whispered, fingers flying across my laptop keyboard. They were building the structure in August. Delaware incorporation meant privacy, minimal disclosure requirements, business-friendly courts, the preferred state for anyone wanting to hide ownership. I clicked through to the registered agent listing. Not Apex Fiduciary this time, but a different service, Meridian Corporate Services, address in Wilmington. I searched Meridian Corporate Services, found their client list, and started cross-referencing shell companies. The pattern emerged after 20 minutes. Palmetto Acquisitions was one of 17 subsidiaries under a parent entity called Meridian Holdings Limited, registered in Gibraltar. Gibraltar meant offshore, meant international money, meant this was bigger than my son stealing from his mother. I traced Meridian Holdings through 3 more corporate layers, each one adding distance between real ownership and paper trails, until finally I found the name at the top. Belvedere International Hospitality Group AG, headquarters Zurich, Switzerland. Primary business: luxury hotel acquisitions and portfolio management. My screen filled with their corporate website's sleek design, photographs of elegant European properties, testimonials from satisfied sellers. Their specialty page made my stomach drop. Boutique Acquisition Services, helping American family businesses transition to professional management. I clicked their portfolio. 17 properties acquired in the past 5 years, all small luxury hotels, all in the southern United States, all formerly family-owned. The corporate chain scrolled past my eyes. Palmetto Acquisitions, Meridian Holdings Limited, Belvedere International AG. Each layer designed to obscure the truth that my family hotel was being fed into a European conglomerate's acquisition machine. Belvedere specialized in what they called sensitive family transitions, hostile takeovers disguised as caring solutions for aging, owners who could no longer manage their properties. The sales pitch on their website could have been written about me, elderly proprietor, declining health, concerned family members seeking professional guidance. I navigated back to my hotel management portal, accessing the cloud storage system. My legacy administrator account had permissions Brent never knew about, including access to shared documents from his user profile. The folder was labeled simply 2026 Transition. Inside, I found it. Letter of intent, dated January 15, 2026. Purchase agreement, preliminary terms. Seller Whispering Pines Holdings, LLC. The Magnolia House. Buyer Palmetto Acquisitions Group. Belvedere International, AG purchase. Price $65 million US. Contingencies: clear title, transfer, all lien satisfied. Closing by June 30th, 2026. Facilitation fee, $3,500. 000 paid, November 2025, to designated representative. Letter of intent. I said to my empty apartment, voice hollow. $65 million. January. He'd signed this in January, 2 months before blocking me from the wedding, 4 months before the actual ceremony, while I was still trying to reach Ella D. Still believing Simone's excuses about digital detox and wedding stress. Brent was negotiating the sale of my entire life's work to Swiss buyers. How long had they been planning this? How many months had Brent sat at my table, smiled, called me mother, while negotiating to sell me? I scrolled to the payment schedule section, saw the line item that made everything clear. Initial facilitation fee, $3,500. 000 US dollars paid, November 25th, 2025. Payment recipient, Gallagher Properties, LLC. Purpose, administrative coordination, title preparation, regulatory compliance. Facilitation fee, I whispered. $3.5 million. It wasn't theft, it was a down payment. The money Desmond thought they'd stolen from my retirement trust wasn't stolen at all. It was the first installment of their commission for delivering me incapacitated and silent to foreign buyers who specialized in stripping family legacies. They already sold me, I said, staring at the payment confirmation. This is just the closing. The letter of intent was signed by Brent Hewitt, title listed as principal owner, Whispering Pines Holdings, LLC. Dated January 15th, 2 months before they'd cut off all my contact with Elodie. He'd been representing himself as legal owner of my company for 6 months. And somewhere in Charleston, lawyers were preparing final sale documents with my forged signature. I closed the laptop and reached for my phone. The financial conspiracy could wait until morning. I needed to know if my granddaughter was safe, or if they'd gotten to her too. Creating a burner email took 3 minutes. The Instagram app downloaded while I made tea I wouldn't drink. By 9:15, I had an anonymous account with no followers, no posts, no connection to Constance Hewitt. I searched Elodie Rose H. Her profile appeared immediately. Public account. Brent and Simone had blocked me months ago, but they couldn't block a stranger. Profile photo showed her laughing, the same bright smile she'd had at 8 when I taught her to arrange magnolias in the hotel lobby. Bio read Charleston, born and raised, art history, coffee enthusiast, marrying my best friend June 8, 2026. Tomorrow. I scrolled backward through wedding planning posts into October 2025. The first post that month showed Elodie at Brood Awakenings on King Street. Photo timestamp, October 18, 2025, 10:47 a.m. Location, Charleston, South Carolina. That was the week Brent told me she was traveling for work. Seattle or Portland, Simone had said. October 23rd, College of Charleston campus. Location tagged Charleston. October 29th, Husk Restaurant on Queen Street, Charleston. November 4th, same King Street coffee shop, Charleston. She was here, I whispered, 3 blocks from my apartment, the entire time. Every October and November post showed Charleston locations, coffee shops I knew, restaurants where I'd eaten, streets I walked. She'd never traveled anywhere. While Simone fed me lies about work retreats and digital detoxes, Elodie was living her normal life 15 minutes away. Instagram posts scrolled past photo, timestamp, location tag, heart count, caption. Each one proof of another day they'd kept us apart through distance that didn't exist. November 12th, 2025. Sunset over Charleston Harbor. Caption. Missing my favorite person today. Tried calling Grandma Connie again, but no answer. Dad says she needs space to rest. Hope you're taking care of yourself, Grandma C. Love you. She'd been trying to reach me, not ignoring me actively trying, while Simone intercepted every attempt. November 20th. Wish I could ask Grandma about wedding flowers. Dad says not to bother her while she's recovering. Recovering from what? November 28th. 4 months since I've seen my grandmother. This doesn't feel right. They'd stolen my money, my hotel, my legal identity. But this? Keeping Elodie from me while lying to her face. This was unforgivable. I scrolled to today's posts, June 7th, 2026. Wedding dress fitting photo. Veil cascading down her back. Radiant and heartbroken. Caption, final fitting complete. Tomorrow's the day. Wish you could be here. Grandma, I know you'd be here if you were well enough. Dad explained your condition has gotten worse and travel isn't safe for you. I understand. But God, I miss you. You'd love this dress. You'd love Marcus. You'd tell me I look beautiful, even though I've been crying all morning. Love you always, Grandma C. You'll be in my heart when I walk down the aisle. I read it 3 times. Each word a knife. Elodie believed I was sick, believed I was incapacitated, too ill to travel. She had no idea about the fraud, the conspiracy, the theft. She thought her parents were protecting me, managing my declining health, making difficult decisions out of love. She was innocent, completely innocent. Another post from this afternoon showed the Magnolia House exterior, golden hour sunlight on the facade. Can't believe I'm getting married here tomorrow at 2 p.m. Grandma built this place with Grandpa Walter. Wish she could see it. 2 o'clock tomorrow, Sunday, June 8th, at the hotel they were stealing. I stared at Elodie's face in the wedding dress photo, seeing Walter's eyes, seeing my own smile, seeing 42 years of love and legacy about to walk down an aisle in a building her father was selling to Swiss strangers. I had less than 17 hours to decide let them complete the fraud while Elodie married in ignorance, or show up and destroy her wedding day with the truth about what her parents had done. The choice could wait until morning. First, I needed to know exactly what I was fighting. One more piece of evidence before I could sleep. I logged into my patient portal, searching for whatever Dr. Upshaw had written in October that was worth millions of stolen dollars. The Charleston Health Network portal loaded slowly. Familiar blue and white interface I'd used for years to check lab results and prescription refills. I navigated past appointment history and medication lists to a section I'd never needed before. Account security. The page showed login history, access requests, and security alerts flagged by the system. I selected the date range, August through December 2025. The activity log populated with dozens of entries. Most were mine routine logins to check test results, verify appointments, but starting in October, a pattern emerged that made my skin crawl. October 14th, 2025, 3:47 p.m. Failed login attempt. IP address 172.58.144.29. Password incorrect. October 14th, 2025, 3:52 p.m. Failed login attempt. IP address 172.58.144.29. Password incorrect. October 16th, 2025, 9:23 a.m. Failed login attempt. IP address 172.58.144.29. Password incorrect. Failed login, I whispered, scrolling through the list. Failed login. Failed login. 7 attempts total between October 14th and November 3rd, all from the same IP address, all flagged by the system as suspicious activity. Someone had tried to break into my medical records. Tried and failed 7 times because they didn't have my password. Below the login attempts, another section, External Records Requests. November 2nd, 2025. Records request submitted by Brent Hewitt, Relationship Power of Attorney. Requested documents. All psychiatric evaluations, cognitive assessments, mental health records, status. Pending verification. November 5th, 2025. Records request submitted by Dr. Lyle Upshaw, MD. Requested documents. Complete medical history for ongoing patient evaluation. Status denied. Patient authorization required. November 12, 2025. Records request submitted by Apex Fiduciary Solutions. Requested documents. Mental capacity assessments to support guardianship evaluation proceedings. Status denied. Insufficient legal documentation. The access log entries scrolled past. Date, time, IP, action, status, failed, failed, failed. Each one a digital fingerprint of someone trying to steal my privacy, my medical history, my proof of competence. I copied the IP address into a lookup tool. The result appeared within seconds. IP address 172.58.144. 29 ISP, Comcast Cable Communications. Location, Charleston, SC 29407. Approximate address, Wapoo Creek Drive area. I opened Charleston County property records, searched Wapoo Creek Drive for Brent Hewitt. Found it immediately. 847 Wapoo Creek Drive. Purchased March 2024. Owners Brent Hewitt and Simone Hewitt. He tried to break into my medical records. I said aloud to my apartment. Past midnight now. Sunday morning, technically. From his own house. Not even using a VPN or proxy. Just his home internet connection. 7 failed attempts to access my psychiatric records, probably trying common passwords. Trying variations of my birthday and Walter's name and hotel addresses. When hacking failed. He'd submitted formal requests, as power of attorney holder, claiming legal right to my medical privacy. When that was denied, he'd gotten Dr. Upshaw to request them. When that failed, Apex Fiduciary Solutions tried, citing something that made my blood freeze. Guardianship evaluation proceedings. How do you fight someone who wants to legally declare you don't exist, that your thoughts, choices, autonomy are no longer yours to control? I clicked the details link on the November 12th request. The full text appeared. Records requested to support ongoing guardianship evaluation for Constance Marie Hewitt. DOB, March 15, 1961. Petitioner Brent Hewitt seeks appointment as legal guardian based on documented cognitive decline and inability to manage personal affairs. Medical documentation required for Family Court Case Number 2025-GU-04782, Charleston County. Family Court Case Number. An actual case number. Not planning, not theoretical filed. Guardianship evaluation, I whispered. Legal authority to make all decisions on behalf of incapacitated individual. They weren't just stealing my hotel. They weren't just stealing my money. They were stealing me. My legal personhood. My right to make decisions. My freedom to speak or move or exist without someone else's permission. They were stealing me. The guardianship petition was already filed, sitting in some family court clerk's office, waiting for Dr. Upshaw's fraudulent psychiatric evaluation and my forged consent. If approved, Brent would have legal authority over every aspect of my life. Medical decisions, financial decisions, where I lived, who I saw, whether I ever spoke to Elodie again. I stared at the case number until it blurred. Then I closed the patient portal and opened a new search. If they'd hired Dr. Upshaw to falsify my psychiatric records, I needed to know who he really was. I started with the South Carolina Medical Board licensing database. Upshaw, Lyle M., license SC-89472, issued March 2024. Specialty Geriatric Psychiatry, practice address, Charleston. Status active, no restrictions. Disciplinary history, none. Clean record, I muttered. Of course it's clean. But clean records sometimes just meant good lawyers and strategic relocations. I opened the Federation of State Medical Boards national database, entered his name again. This search pulled records from all 50 states. The result made my hands shake. Upshaw, Lyle M., Virginia Board of Medicine, status suspended, effective January 15, 2023. Reason: falsifying patient psychiatric evaluations to support third-party legal proceedings. Multiple substantiated complaints. Fine, $45,000. Virginia Board of Medicine, license suspended. Falsifying psychiatric evaluations. Third-party legal proceedings. He's done this before. This is what he does. I clicked the full disciplinary report. Complaint, November 1st, 2021. Dr. Upshaw diagnosed 73-year-old patient with severe dementia during single 20-minute evaluation. Daughter used diagnosis to obtain emergency guardianship. Independent physician found no cognitive impairment. Complaint 2, March 2022. Written assessment supporting incompetency claim. Family court discovered patient and doctor had never met. Diagnosis fabricated from family descriptions. Complaint, August 3, 2022. Accepted $12,000 consulting fee from adult son, then evaluated son's mother. Report recommended immediate guardianship. Patient's longtime physician contradicted findings. The disciplinary action summary scrolled past date, violation, penalty, January 2023, falsification, suspension, $45,000. 6 documented cases of elderly patients declared incompetent through fraudulent evaluations. 6 families who'd paid Dr. Upshaw to make their inconvenient parents legally disappear. Virginia suspension, January 2023. South Carolina license application, March 2024. 15 months later, he'd simply relocated, rebuilt his practice in a state where victims wouldn't know to check Virginia records. Geriatric psychiatry, guardianship evaluations. He specializes in this fraud. They'd found a doctor whose entire practice was built on making elderly people disappear legally, permanently, while their families emptied bank accounts and sold property and erased autonomy with a single forged diagnosis. Brent hadn't stumbled onto Dr. Upshaw by accident. Someone had referred him. Someone in that network of shell companies and notary services and title fraud who knew exactly what services the doctor provided. I checked the time, 5:28 a.m. Sunday morning, 8.5 hours until the wedding. I picked up my phone and called Desmond So. He answered on the 4th ring, voice rough with sleep. Constance, what's wrong? Desmond, I need you to check family court filings, right now. It's 5:30 in the morning. Guardianship petition. I interrupted. My name. Filed anytime since October. Case number 2025-GU-04782, if it exists. Silence. Then, where did you get that case number? My medical records portal. Apex Fiduciary Solutions requested my psychiatric files in November to support guardianship proceedings. They cited an active case. Jesus. Movement. Sheets rustling. Footsteps. If there's an active petition, the wedding is at 2, I said, if there's a petition. We have 8 hours to stop it. I need to know if I'm about to walk into that hotel as a legally competent woman or if my son already owns me. Desmond's voice shifted. Sleep gone, replaced by the attorney I'd hired 40 years ago. I'll meet you at my office in 40 minutes. Bring everything you found. If there's a guardianship petition filed, Constance, we're going to war. I hung up and started gathering documents. The forged power of attorney, the fake vendor invoices, the Belvedere acquisition letter. Dr. Upshaw's Virginia disciplinary record. The medical portal security log showing Brent's hacking attempts. Elodie's Instagram posts proving the travel lies. Every piece of evidence I'd collected through one sleepless night. Proof of a conspiracy that had started months before I'd signed anything. Engineered by my own son to steal not just my money, but my entire existence. The sun was rising over Charleston. The wedding was in 8 hours. And I was done being a victim. I dressed in yesterday's clothes and waited by the window, watching sunrise paint King Street gold. His callback came at 7:15, and I knew from the silence before he spoke that he'd found it. It's filed, Desmond said quietly. November 25th. Emergency temporary guardianship petition. I closed my eyes. November 25th. 3 weeks after Dr. Upshaw's fraudulent evaluation. 1 week before they'd paid him the first installment through Gallagher Properties. Dr. Upshaw's psychiatric evaluation is attached. Desmond continued, voice tight with controlled fury. Claims you show signs of progressive dementia, impaired judgment, confusion regarding financial matters. States you pose risk of self-harm if left unsupervised. Risk of self-harm, I repeated. Because I might discover they're stealing from me. The petition requests immediate temporary guardianship pending full hearing. Brent filed supporting affidavits claiming erratic behavior, financial confusion, inability to manage daily activities. Standard elder abuse playbook. When's the hearing? Wednesday, June 11th. 3 days from now. 3 days. The wedding was today. The hearing, Wednesday. They'd planned it perfectly. Celebrate Elodie's marriage today. Obtain legal control of me Wednesday. Close the Belvedere sale by month's end. Who's the judge? Marlowe Keating, Charleston County Family Court. He's been on the bench for 12 years. Handles most guardianship cases. Conservative. Tends to favor family petitioners if medical evidence supports incompetency claims. And we have Dr. Upshaw's fraudulent evaluation as medical evidence, which I can challenge with your clean bill of health from your actual physician. But Constance, Desmond's voice dropped. If Judge Keating grants even temporary guardianship Wednesday morning, it becomes effective immediately. Brent gets legal authority over your medical care, your finances, your living situation, everything. While we appeal, which could take months. By then, the hotel sale could be finalized, assets transferred. You locked in some memory care facility with Brent as your legal guardian, controlling all access. The court filing header flashed through my mind. Case number 2025-CP-10-8847. Petitioner, Brent M. Hewitt. Respondent, Constance E. Hewitt. Hearing date, June 11, 2026. 3 days to dismantle a conspiracy 9 months in the making. We need to file counter-motion immediately, Desmond said. Challenge the petition. Submit contradicting medical evidence. Request continuance for proper evaluation. No. Constance. He thinks I don't know. I interrupted, mind racing through possibilities. He filed that petition 7 months ago and thinks I'm sitting here confused and alone. Exactly like Dr. Upshaw described. You want to let him believe that. What if we let him keep thinking it? Let him believe his own lie. Desmond, let him get comfortable. Silence on the line. Then, what are you proposing? The fear didn't disappear. It crystallized into something sharper, colder, infinitely more dangerous than Brent had ever imagined his mother could be. I'm going to that wedding, I said slowly, plan forming with each word. And I'm going to look exactly like the woman in Dr. Upshaw's report. Confused. Weak. Harmless. A grandmother who doesn't understand what's happening, who believes her caring son is protecting her. While gathering evidence. While gathering everything we need. Witnesses who'll testify I appeared competent. Photos proving I'm functional. Conversations I'll record showing their real motives. Let Brent celebrate today thinking he's won. Let him get sloppy. And Wednesday. Wednesday, we walk into Judge Keating's courtroom with proof of the entire conspiracy, the forged documents, the shell companies, the Belvedere sale, Dr. Upshaw's Virginia suspension. Every piece of evidence I found last night. We don't just defend against the guardianship petition, we destroy them. Desmond was quiet for a long moment. Then, 35 years running that hotel taught you to think 6 moves ahead, didn't it? 42, I corrected. Walter and I opened in 1984, and yes, Brent forgets I spent 4 decades reading difficult guests, managing complex logistics, planning events where one mistake meant disaster. He thinks I was just the woman who arranged flowers and smiled at check-in. He's about to learn different. Yes, he is. I hung up and opened my closet, looking for the right costume, something expensive enough for a wedding, but slightly disheveled. A woman trying to hold herself together and failing. They wanted a confused old lady losing her grip on reality. I'd give them a performance worth $65 million. I chose navy silk, wrinkled at the hem, pearl earrings with one backing missing. I rehearsed the voice 3 times in front of my bathroom mirror. Querulous. Uncertain. The slightest tremor of confusion before I trusted myself to dial Brent's number. He answered on the second ring. Mom? Brent. Sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Was the wedding yesterday? I wrote it down, but I can't find my calendar. Silence. Then his voice shifted into the tone people used with children and incompetent elderly. Mom, it's today, 2 o'clock, at the Magnolia House. Oh, I let my voice crack slightly. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, should I still come? Of course. It's Elodie's wedding. I wasn't sure if I was invited anymore. You're always invited. You've been under a lot of stress lately. Stress. The word he was using instead of dementia. Maybe you should rest today, he continued. Weddings can be overwhelming. I want to see Elodie. Maybe it's better if you... Please, Brent, I'll be good. I promise I won't cause any trouble. The phrase tasted like ash. Okay, he said, satisfaction evident. 2 o'clock. Do you need someone to pick you up? No, I think I remember how to get there. You're sure? I'm sure. Thank you, sweetheart. See you at 2. Try to rest until then. You sound tired. I will. I love you. The words felt like swallowing poison. Love you too, he said. Then I heard rustling, the phone being set down, but not the click of disconnection. I held my breath. Muffled voices. Then clearer. That was her, exactly like Upshaw said it would be. Simone's voice. Confused about the date. Couldn't remember if the wedding was yesterday or today. Asked if she was still invited. Poor thing, Simone said without sympathy. Did she agree to come? Yeah, very compliant. Phone status connected. Time elapsed 0347. Muffled voices. Still recording. I grabbed my phone's voice memo app, started recording the conversation. Marcus moved the hearing, Simone said. My blood froze. Moved it where? Brent asked. Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock. He filed emergency motion yesterday citing rapid cognitive decline. Judge Keating approved it. Tuesday, not Wednesday, tomorrow. That's fast. Marcus said we need to act before she becomes more confused. The more impaired she appears, the easier the guardianship approval. And Pinehurst. Private room ready Tuesday afternoon. Based on Dr. Upshaw's evaluation, they'll accept her directly from the courthouse. Memory care, the phrase people used when they meant prison for the elderly. Locked units, where families disappeared. Inconvenient parents. Perfect, Brent said. Wedding today, hearing tomorrow morning. She's at Pinehurst by tomorrow evening. Wednesday, we close the Belvedere deal without complications. Once guardianship is granted, you have complete legal authority. She can't challenge the sale. Can't access accounts. Can't contact anyone without your approval, including Elodie. Especially Elodie. You decide who visits, who calls, what she's told. I pressed record harder, capturing every word. The facility has strict visitor policies. Simone continued. Family only, with guardian approval. We tell Elodie her grandmother's too ill for visits. By the time anyone questions it, the sale will be finalized and the money offshore. Offshore already. Marcus set up Grand Cayman accounts last week. The moment Belvedere wires final payment, it transfers automatically. Untouchable. And if she fights the guardianship, from a locked memory care unit, with what resources, Marcus said once, Judge Keating signs the order tomorrow. She has zero legal standing. You're her guardian. You speak for her. The line went dead at 10:14 a.m. I stopped recording. 12 minutes, 47 seconds. Every word documented. I had less than 24 hours before they tried to lock me away forever. And 4 hours before I had to walk into that wedding and convince everyone, including my granddaughter, that I was exactly the confused, helpless woman Brent needed me to be. I called Desmond immediately after ending the recording. He told me to come to his office. Now. Desmond was already pulling files when I walked into his office at 11:45. His face grim, with the kind of focus that meant he'd found something that changed everything. They moved it to Tuesday morning, I said, closing the door behind me. 10 o'clock, not Wednesday. I know, I got notification from the court clerk 20 minutes ago. Emergency motion filed yesterday afternoon. Memory care facility ready for Tuesday afternoon. Pinehurst. They plan to lock me away the same day, straight from the courthouse. Desmond's jaw tightened. We can file countermotion, challenge the emergency designation, request continuance. I recorded them. I pulled out my phone, played the 12-minute conversation. Desmond listened without interrupting, his expression darkening with each revelation. When it finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Your husband was a very careful man, Constance. Let me check something." He pulled a thick folder from his file cabinet, flipped through documents until he found what he wanted. Original trust paperwork, yellowed at the edges, dated March 1991. "Whispering Pines Holdings LLC formation documents," he said, spreading them across his desk. "Walter and I drafted these together when you transferred the hotel into the family trust." I'd forgotten about this clause, but hearing that recording, he pointed to a section I'd never read carefully. Section 7.3, Beneficiary Protection Provision. "Walter required biometric authentication for any controlling share transfer," Desmond said. "Fingerprint and retinal scan both, performed at designated banking institution with notarized verification." I stared at the words, not understanding. Biometric. "Any transfer of controlling ownership requires your live, in-person biometric signature, not a written signature, not a power of attorney, not a guardianship authorization. You, physically present, fingerprint and retinal scan verified." He built this in 1991. He knew you'd need protection if anything happened to him. He was 58 when we drafted this, already worried about estate planning, protecting you from future threats. Section 7.3, Beneficiary Protection. "Controlling share transfer requires live biometric authentication at Palmetto Trust and Savings, Charleston. Fingerprint plus retinal scan. Circumvention of this requirement automatically voids transaction and triggers mandatory federal fraud investigation. Any circumvention attempt triggers federal audit." Desmond continued. "IRS and FBI. Forged documents, fraudulent guardianship, coerced signature. All void the sale and activate investigation. Even if Brent has guardianship. Even then, guardians can't provide biometric authentication on behalf of their wards. The technology requires the actual person. Your fingerprints, your retinas, no one else's." I read the clause again, seeing my husband's handwriting in the margins where he'd annotated changes during drafting. "Protect Constance. Must be fail-safe." "He anticipated someone might try to steal this from you," Desmond said quietly. "Family, con artists, whoever. So he built in protection that can't be forged or bypassed." Walter had been gone 12 years, but he was still protecting me, still 3 moves ahead of anyone who tried to take what we'd built together. "The Belvedere sale," I whispered, understanding crystallizing. "It can't close without my biometric signature." "Correct. The letter of intent Brent signed is worthless without your live authentication of the final transfer documents. Even if he gets guardianship Tuesday. Even if he forges everything. Even if he locks me in Pinehurst, the poison pill destroys the deal. The moment Belvedere's attorneys review the trust documents for closing, they'll see the requirement. They'll demand your biometric authentication. If Brent tries to bypass it or forge it, the transaction automatically voids and federal investigation begins." I sat down heavily, the weight of the past 36 hours shifting from crushing pressure to something else entirely. "Walter saved me," I said, "from the grave. He saved me." "He did. The $65 million sale is legally impossible without your real, voluntary consent. Brent's entire conspiracy, the forged deed, the fake guardianship, the fraudulent signatures, none of it can complete the transaction." But Brent didn't know the sale was impossible. He thought he was 24 hours from victory. From locking me away and collecting millions, which meant I could use his ignorance like a weapon, let him walk further into the trap Walter had built, until the moment I decided to spring it. The poison pill meant I was safe, but safe wasn't enough. "The poison pill stops the sale," Desmond said, leaning forward with the predatory focus of a man who'd found the kill shot. "But let's make sure even attempting it destroys them." "How?" "We separate the brand from the buildings. Trademark, systems, contracts, all of it. Transfer everything valuable to new LLC solely in your name. That's legal. Completely. Intellectual property and physical property are separate assets. You can split them anytime. The buildings become an empty shell, just bricks and mortgages. The Magnolia House is valuable because of the brand, the systems you built. We take all of that away. He pulled up a digital inventory. The Magnolia House trademark, proprietary reservation platform worth $2 million. Exclusive vendor contracts with 47 suppliers. Operating procedures manual. Customer database. All intangible assets. All separable from real estate. And if we transfer them, Whispering Pines becomes an empty entity owning buildings. No brand, no systems, no vendor relationships. The brand is the value. Exactly. Without it, Brent's selling generic real estate worth maybe $15 million, not $65 million, as a functioning luxury brand. Desmond opened a new document. Emergency corporate resolution. As sole beneficial owner, you have authority to restructure. Transfers complete in 4 hours. Asset inventory scrolled past trademarks 12, reservation platform, vendor contracts 47, operating procedures, brand guidelines, customer database, everything that made the Magnolia House more than just a building. Hewitt Hospitality Group, LLC, Desmond said. Sole member, Constance E. Hewitt. Receives all intellectual property, systems, and contracts from Whispering Pines effective immediately. I signed the corporate resolution at 12:53 p.m., my signature real, not forged, splitting my company to save it. Desmond filed trademark transfers with the Patent Office. Software license revocations. Vendor contract reassignments. Each filing another piece of value stripped from the shell company Brent thought he was selling. We were stripping the meat off the bones and leaving Brent with a skeleton to sell impressive to look at, worthless to eat. Timeline, Desmond said at 1:32 p.m. Trademark transfers filed, software licenses revoked, vendor contracts reassigned. By tomorrow, Whispering Pines owns 3 buildings and nothing else. And if Brent gets past the poison pill, Belvedere buys empty buildings with massive mortgages, worth maybe $15 million instead of the $65 million empire they contracted for. They paid $3.5 million up front. To Gallagher Properties, when they discover they've purchased worthless assets, buildings without the brand, systems, or contracts that made them valuable, they'll sue Brent for fraud, criminal charges. They'll destroy him completely. International corporations don't appreciate being sold fraudulent assets. They have lawyers who specialize in destroying people who try. I saw the trap's full architecture. The poison pill stopped the sale. The IP separation made attempting the sale catastrophic. And Brent's own greed, his facilitation fee, his forged documents, his guardianship fraud would be the evidence that buried him. He ends up bankrupt, prosecuted, owning nothing, I said, while you retain all value in Hewitt Hospitality Group. The brand, the systems, the contracts. You can license them back to the buildings or find new properties. He gets nothing. Even if he somehow wins. Even if he somehow wins, he loses. That's the beauty of it. I checked my watch 1:45. The wedding started in 15 minutes, and I'd just dismantled my own company to save it. Time to get to the Magnolia House and play the confused old woman while sitting on a corporate nuclear weapon with a 24-hour fuse. I left Desmond's office at 2 o'clock, knowing the wedding would proceed without me. Elodie would understand, eventually. Right now, I had 20 hours to build an airtight defense. Celeste Valentine looked over her shoulder 3 times before sitting down across from me at the waterfront cafe table, and I knew she'd brought something that could end Brent's career. I couldn't come to the wedding, she said quietly, clutching her purse. He's watching who I talk to. You're risking your job meeting me. I'm risking more than that. She glanced toward the parking lot again. The invoices started in September. Strange amounts. Vendors I'd never heard of. When I asked questions, he said I could be replaced. Celeste had been general manager at the Magnolia House for 8 years. She knew every vendor, every contract, every invoice pattern. If something looked wrong to her, it was wrong. How many invoices? 47 between September and November, all requiring immediate processing. All with signatures I was supposed to believe were yours. But you didn't believe them. I've seen your signature for 8 years, Mrs. Hewitt. I know how you dot your I's, how you loop your E's. These were close, but wrong. She ordered coffee neither of us would drink, waiting until the server left before continuing. He threatened me in October. Said if I questioned one more invoice, he'd fire me and make sure I never worked hospitality in Charleston again. So I stopped questioning. But you didn't stop watching. No, I started documenting. Document inventory flashed through my mind. Invoice copies, wire authorizations, forged signatures, witness notes. Evidence I desperately needed. Before I tell you what was inside that manila envelope she slid across the table, if you're still with me, comment whether you think Celeste brought financial records or witness testimony. And tell me why in 5 to 10 words. Because what she's about to show me changes everything. Quick note, the next part includes fictionalized details added for narrative impact. The envelope was thick, professionally organized with tabbed sections. I opened it carefully. Copies of every fraudulent invoice, Celeste said, 47 total. Every wire transfer authorization to Gallagher Properties, 20 of those. Every signature that wasn't yours, I marked them with dates. I first noticed discrepancies. I flipped through pages of documented fraud, hotel letterhead, vendor invoices for companies that didn't exist, transfer authorizations moving hundreds of thousands to Simone's shell company, and on every page, signatures attempting to match mine. September through November, 3 months of fraud, documented in real time. I wrote notes every time something felt wrong, she continued, dated, detailed. When he pressured me to process that one $20,000 invoice in November, I wrote down exactly what he said, exactly how he threatened me. This proves pattern, not isolated mistakes. It proves systematic conspiracy, and I can testify to all of it. I looked up from the documents. Testify. Tuesday morning, criminal trial, wherever you need me. Her voice was steady now, fear replaced by determination. You were sharp as ever in September, Mrs. Hewitt. Everyone on staff knew it. I'll say so under oath. Some people build empires. Others protect them quietly, keeping receipts and waiting for the day truth matters more than paychecks. He'll destroy your career, I said. He threatened my job. Celeste's smile was cold. I'm taking his instead. I've already contacted 3 other managers who saw the same irregularities. We're all willing to testify. 3 others. Accounting manager, events coordinator, housekeeping director. We all noticed. We all kept quiet when threatened. We're all done being quiet. I stared at the envelope. At 8 years of loyalty transformed into legal ammunition. As general manager with 8-year tenure, you're unimpeachable, I said. You authenticate the forgeries, confirm my competency, detail his coercion, and destroy his incompetency defense completely, yes. I walked back to my apartment at 7:30 with 47 pieces of evidence and one fearless witness in my pocket. Tuesday morning, Brent would walk into that courtroom expecting a confused old woman. He'd find a prosecutor with documentation, testimony, and 12 years of rage sharpened into a legal blade. He expected confusion. I had rage.
Evidence.
And allies who'd kept receipts. We spread the Belvedere documents across Desmond's conference table at 9:30 Sunday night, reconstructing a conspiracy that had been hiding in plain sight for months. Brand integration timeline. Desmond read from a glossy marketing packet. 12-month transition plan. Staff training modules. System migration schedules. I flipped through operational materials marked Confidential, the Magnolia House Charleston acquisition. Belvedere's corporate overview showed 17 previous boutique hotel purchases, all in the American South, all formerly family-owned. We were number 18. Their logo appeared on every page, distinctive interlocking B monogram in gold and navy. Elegant European typography that screamed old money and luxury hospitality. Their logo, I said, staring at it. Gold and navy interlocking B. Something about it nagged at me. Familiar. Recent. Then it hit me like cold water. This logo. I saw this logo at the wedding. Desmond looked up. Where? The hotel entrance. Derek Rhodes, the security guard, he apologized about new management changing the signage. Said it wasn't his decision. I pulled the logo closer, heart racing. This is their logo. Belvedere's. It's been on my hotel for months. They've been running the Magnolia House. Since when? I grabbed the operational materials, searching for dates. Found it in a transition memo. Soft integration commenced February 15th. 2026 Under Management Services Agreement, pending ownership transfer completion. February 15th, 4 months before the wedding. Management Services Agreement. Desmond repeated. They've been calling it consulting while running operations, training staff, changing systems, implementing their standards for 4 months. Timeline reconstruction flashed through my mind. February 15th, Belvedere integration begins. August 7th, POA signed. November 25th, guardianship filed. June 7th, wedding blockade. June 10th, planned destruction. He gave them my hotel before he even tried to take legal control of me, I said, voice shaking. Before the guardianship petition. Before Dr. Upshaw's evaluation. He handed operational control to Swiss buyers and then started building the legal framework to make it permanent. Desmond pulled another document from the stack. Management Services Agreement. Signed January 20th by Brent Hewitt as principal of Whispering Pines Holdings, LLC, under authorized power of attorney, using the POAI signed in August for property taxes. He's been representing himself as owner since January, negotiating with Belvedere, signing agreements, giving them access to your business. I'd walked past that logo a dozen times in 4 months, never knowing it meant my son had already sold me. The wedding, I said quietly. He blocked me from the wedding because Belvedere staff were already working there. He couldn't risk me seeing their logo. Asking questions, discovering the takeover was already underway. Derek Rhodes apologizing was Brent's nightmare scenario employee acknowledging the change to the actual owner, so he made sure I never got inside. Desmond kept searching documents, pulled out a bound agreement with signature pages. Preliminary purchase agreement. Parties Whispering Pines Holdings, LLC, and Belvedere International Hospitality Group, AG. He flipped to the execution page. Froze. Execution date June 10th, 2026, 2 p.m. I checked my watch. Monday would be June 9th. Tuesday the 10th. 4 hours after the guardianship hearing, I whispered. Desmond nodded grimly. Hearing at 10 a.m. Judge Keating grants guardianship. Brent becomes your legal guardian with complete authority, then at 2 p.m. He walks into a lawyer's office and signs documents selling my life's work for $65 million, using guardianship authority granted that morning. And by evening, you're institutionalized at Pinehurst Memory Care, unable to challenge anything. The timeline was surgical: legal control at 10, financial extraction at 2, physical imprisonment by 6. Complete destruction of Constance Hewitt accomplished in 8 hours. They planned to do it all in one day, I said. Control me, sell everything, disappear me. One perfect day of coordinated devastation. I stared at the signature page, at the blank line waiting for Brent's fraudulent authorization, at the date that would never come. Tuesday at 2 p.m. Brent planned to sit in some lawyer's office and sign documents selling my life's work for $65 million. But I'd be sitting in a different office with Desmond, Celeste, and 47 pieces of evidence, watching his entire world collapse 4 hours before that pen touched paper, 4 hours before Brent planned to sign. I'd make sure he owned nothing but consequences. Elodie stood when she saw me walk into the cafe Monday morning, her face cycling through confusion, relief, and something close to fear in the span of 3 seconds. "Grandma!" She rushed forward, stopped short, stared. You look completely fine." "I am fine, sweetheart. But Dad said you were too sick to come to the wedding, that you're having memory problems." Her eyes scanned me, searching for symptoms. "You look exactly like you always have." Because I am exactly like I always have. Then why haven't you returned my calls I tried 17 times? I took her hands. I tried calling you every single day. Someone blocked my number from your phone. Who would? Your father told me you were traveling overseas, Europe, then Asia, unreachable for months. Elodie pulled back, shaking her head. I was here. I was in Charleston the whole time. Why would he say that? Someone kept us apart deliberately. Someone made sure we couldn't talk, couldn't compare stories. I watched her process it, her father lying about her grandmother's health, lying about her own location. Manufacturing separation through coordinated deception. Why? She whispered. 25 years old, married 3 days, and learning her parents might be strangers. I watched her childhood crumble in real time and hated myself for every piece of innocence I had to destroy. I don't know all the answers yet, but I've found financial irregularities that need explaining. I pulled out the Gallagher Properties documents. The shell company registration in Simone's maiden name. This is a shell company your mother created. Money from my accounts went here, significant amounts. Elodie studied the papers. For what? That's what I'm trying to understand. Tomorrow there's a court hearing to clarify some legal matters. Make sure to review my financial capacity. Financial capacity? Dad said you have dementia. Do I seem like I have dementia? She looked at me, really looked, and shook her head. No, you seem sharper than half the people I work with. That's because I don't have dementia. Someone needed people to believe I did. For the money. Possibly. Probably, she corrected, anger creeping in. If this is just financial confusion, why lie about you being sick? Why keep us apart? Why tell me you couldn't come to my wedding? How do you tell someone the parents who raised them might be criminals without making them choose between truth and love? I don't know, but I intend to find out tomorrow. At this hearing, yes. Can I come? I hesitated. The hearing would be brutal. Evidence of fraud, forgery, conspiracy, guardianship petition, institutionalization plans, everything that would destroy her parents in one devastating morning. It might be difficult to hear. If they lied about this, about you being sick, about me being gone, I need to hear their explanation. Her jaw set with familiar determination. I need to understand why. Elodie. I still love them. They're my parents. But there are too many lies. She met my eyes. I'll be at the hearing tomorrow. I need to hear what they say under oath. I nodded, knowing tomorrow would either vindicate me or destroy our family. Possibly both. She hugged me before leaving, holding on longer than usual, and whispered, if they lied about this, what else did they lie about? I didn't answer, because tomorrow in that courtroom, she'd find out exactly how deep the lies went. Tomorrow she'd discover the truth. Today, I'd make sure I had every weapon to defend it. Desmond's phone rang at noon Monday with a Charleston area code I didn't recognize, and when he answered, his expression shifted from curiosity to something close to vindication. Patricia Carmichael, First Carolina Trust Compliance Department, a woman's voice said through speaker. Calling regarding the Whispering Pines Holdings account. What about it? Desmond asked. We've been monitoring concerning activity since September 2025. Unusual transfer patterns. Authorization signatures that didn't match our records. I leaned forward. This is Constance Hewitt. Mrs. Hewitt. Good. Patricia's relief was audible. We flagged multiple transactions as potentially fraudulent. Large wire transfers. Signatures that appeared forged. Why didn't you contact me? We tried. Calls went to someone claiming to be your assistant, saying you were unavailable due to health issues. That raised red flags. What did you do? Filed suspicious activity report with FBI Financial Crimes Unit in November 2025. Case number FC-2025-8847. The room tilted. The FBI? They've been investigating for 7 months. Wire fraud, forgery, elder financial exploitation. Your guardianship hearing tomorrow. They'll be watching carefully. FBI case status, active. Case type, wire fraud, forgery, elder exploitation. Duration, 7 months. Evidence, hundreds of documents. Federal government building prosecution, while I'd been gathering my own. "We weren't fighting alone," I said after Patricia hung up. "You were never alone," Desmond corrected. 20 minutes later, his office door opened. A man in his 50s entered carrying a manila envelope. Average height, forgettable features. Exactly what you wanted in a private investigator. "Russell Briggs," Desmond introduced. Russell placed the envelope on the desk. Device was in the ceiling vent above conference room table at the Magnolia House. Section Sunday night, 2 weeks of recordings. "What kind of recordings?" I asked. "Business meetings, phone calls. Your son used that room for sensitive discussions." Russell pulled out a thumb drive. "You'll want to hear June 3rd. Brent and 3 men with European accents." Desmond plugged it into his laptop. Audio quality was clear. Brent's voice filled the office. "Timeline is locked. Guardianship hearing Tuesday morning. Judge Keating grants petition. I become legal guardian. Sale closes Tuesday afternoon. She's in Pinehurst memory care by evening. And the psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Upshaw will testify she's incompetent. I have his report ready. Progressed dementia, unable to manage affairs, requires protective custody. Your attorney is confident. Marcus says it's foolproof. Mother's completely unaware. No legal representation. Keating will approve it in 15 minutes. Laughter. European accents agreeing. Once guardianship is granted. Brent continued. I signed the purchase agreement as her legal representative. 65 million wires to designated account. Belvedere takes possession. Clean, legal, irreversible. His voice on that recording, casual, arrogant. Laughing about locking away his own mother was the sound of a man who'd never imagined consequences could catch him. This is a confession, Desmond said. Wire fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy, his own voice. Is it admissible? South Carolina is one-party consent. Russell was authorized by building management to investigate suspected criminal activity. It's admissible. I stared at the laptop, at the audio waveform showing my son plotting my destruction. He planned everything, I said. The hearing, the sale, the institutionalization, one day. And now we have him planning it, in his own words, with dates, amounts, co-conspirators. Russell stood. 6 more recordings, different dates, same conspiracy. I'll send the full package. I left Desmond's office at 1 p.m. carrying the audio recording in my purse. FBI case file number memorized. 47 pieces of documentary evidence organized. And 1 granddaughter waiting in the gallery. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I'd walk into that courtroom and detonate 12 years of careful patience under my son's entire world. The detonation began at 10 o'clock the next morning, but first, I needed to understand exactly what I was destroying. I waited until I was alone in my apartment Monday evening, curtains drawn. Before I pressed play on the recording Russell had given me, I needed to hear my son's betrayal in private, where no one would see me break. Kitchen table, glass of water, recording device showing 93 minutes of audio. Time-stamped June 3rd, 2026, 3:15 p.m. 1 week before the wedding that kept me out. I pressed play. Ambient noise filled my small living room. Conference room sounds, chairs scraping, papers rustling. Then Brent's voice, clear and professional. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Let's discuss the transition timeline. Heavily accented voices greeting him. European politeness masking business calculation. Before we finalize the purchase agreement, one said, we need assurance regarding the ownership transfer complications you mentioned. Stateway, make sure you honor you. No complications, Brent replied smoothly. Just procedural steps. My mother's guardianship hearing is scheduled June 10th at 10 a.m. Charleston County Family Court, Judge Marlo Keating presiding. And the outcome. Guaranteed. Dr. Lyle Upshaw's psychiatric evaluation confirms progressive dementia and inability to manage affairs. My attorney Marcus has filed all necessary petitions. Standard elder guardianship case. Your mother will contest. Brent laughed. Actually laughed. She doesn't know it's happening. No legal representation, no awareness. Judge Keating will approve it in 15 minutes. And then I have complete legal authority as her guardian. I can sign the purchase agreement on her behalf. Clean ownership transfer, fully legal. He was discussing me like a zoning permit, a regulatory hurdle, not his mother a legal obstacle requiring paperwork. Recording transcripts scrolled through my mind. March 28, 2015. Brent. Guardianship approved. March 28, 2022. Belvedere Rep. Timeline. March 28, 2024. Brent. Tuesday noon. Legally incapacitated. What about ongoing complications? Another voice asked. If she challenges the arrangement later, she won't be in a position to challenge anything. Explain. Pinehurst Memory Care has a private room ready for Tuesday afternoon. Locked memory care unit. Professional staff managing medication and daily care. Very discreet facility. Simone's voice joined the conversation. I'd been listening for 20 minutes before hearing her. Elodie doesn't need to know the details, she said. Better if she thinks her grandmother needs professional medical supervision. Less complicated. And Mrs. Hewitt will not contest these arrangements. Brent's answer came quickly, confidently. She'll never know what happened. Memory care residents are medicated for behavioral management, kept on structured routines. By the time she realizes anything, we'll own everything, and she'll have no legal standing to challenge it. You're certain. Memory care facilities are designed to manage confused elderly patients. Between the medications and the isolation, she'll be too disoriented to understand what's happening, let alone mount any kind of legal challenge. I stopped the recording at 8:12 p.m., walked to the bathroom, and vomited. Not from fear, but from the biological rejection of hearing my child plan my erasure. I rinsed my mouth and went back to the recording. Guardianship means I control everything. Brent's voice continued. Her money, her property, her medical decisions, who visits her, what she's told about her own life. She becomes legally invisible, a non-person. And your purchase agreement closes Tuesday at 2 p.m., 4 hours after guardianship is granted. 65 million wires to the designated accounts. Belvedere takes possession of all properties. By Tuesday evening, the sale is complete, and my mother is safely institutionalized in a facility where she can't interfere. Safely, one of the European voices repeated, and I heard the smile in it. Safely, Brent confirmed. Not theft, not even fraud. Complete erasure of my identity, my agency, my existence, while keeping me alive and legally invisible. Drugged and confused in a locked facility, unaware I'd been stolen from myself. My son didn't want to kill me. He wanted something worse, to make me disappear while breathing. I played the recording 3 more times that night, memorizing every inflection, every laugh, every casual reference to destroying me. Tomorrow morning, in that courtroom, the judge would hear my son's voice explaining how he planned to make his mother legally disappear, and then I'd watch him try to explain it to his daughter. Tomorrow the judge would hear it. Tomorrow Elodie would hear it. Tonight, I had to hear all of it. The recording ran another 40 minutes after the guardianship discussion, and at timestamp 52 minutes, I heard Simone's voice ask the question that changed everything. When do we leave? Rustling papers, chairs shifting. Then Brent's voice, lower now, more private. I have the travel documents right here. Flights are booked. When Simone pressed, Wednesday morning, 6:15 departure from Charleston. My apartment felt smaller suddenly, walls closing in as I understood the scope. Marcus's voice entered the conversation. Post-closing logistics. Belvedere representatives have left, so we can speak freely. Walk me through it, Simone said. The whole timeline. Brent's voice took on the tone I'd heard him use presenting business plans. Confident, methodical, proud. Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Guardianship hearing. Keating grants petition. I become mom's legal guardian. 2 p.m., same day. Belvedere purchase closes. I sign as her legal representative. 65 million purchase price wires in 2 parts. 2 parts? Simone asked. 33 million to Belvedere's acquisition account for the properties. 32 million to our designated offshore accounts. 32 million, she repeated, and I heard the smile in her voice. Marcus continued. Accounts are established in Grand Cayman. Transfers happen Tuesday evening after closing confirmation. Wire clears by midnight Tuesday. Wednesday morning, you're in the air before anyone questions the guardianship approval. And final destination? Simone asked. Country without U.S. extradition treaty. Marcus replied. I won't say which one on a recording, but your citizenship applications are already processed. Permanent residency guaranteed. Flight itinerary burned into my mind. CHS to GCM 6:15 Wednesday. GCM to redacted destination 14:30 Wednesday. Passengers 2. Type 1 way. Cost $8,400. $32 million and new identities waiting on the other end. What about timing? Simone asked. Between the guardianship and our departure. 18 hours, Brent said. Guardianship granted Tuesday 10 a.m. We board the plane Wednesday 6 a.m. 18 hours for anyone to challenge it. But they won't. Why not? Because Mom will be at Pinehurst by 4 p.m. Tuesday. Locked memory care unit. Admission orders include behavioral medication protocol standard for dementia patients who might become agitated. Medication, Simone said flatly. She'll be chemically compliant within 2 hours of admission. Sedated. Confused. Unable to make phone calls or contact anyone who might help her challenge the guardianship. My hands were shaking. I set down the recording device, breathed, picked it back up. What if she tries? Simone asked. To do what? Call a lawyer. Brent laughed. I'm her legal guardian. I control her medical decisions, her communication access, everything. If she shows any signs of lucidity or resistance, I authorize increased sedation. You thought of everything, Marcus said, admiration clear. He'd thought of everything, the guardianship, the drugs, the timing, the escape, everything except the possibility that his mother might be 3 moves ahead. By the time we're in the air Wednesday morning, Brent continued, she won't remember her own name. The guardianship will be 48 hours old. Uncontested, the sale will be closed and recorded. The money will be offshore and untouchable, and will be gone. Perfect, Simone whispered. Perfect, Brent agreed. The recording went silent for a moment. Then Marcus, one more thing. What about Elodie? What about her? She'll ask questions about her grandmother, about where you've gone. We tell her the truth, Brent said. That Mom's condition deteriorated rapidly, required professional care, and we've relocated for business opportunities. By the time she figures out anything's wrong. Statute of limitations will protect us, and we'll be beyond extradition. And if she wants to visit her grandmother, Pinehurst will say Mom's too confused for visitors, that seeing family upsets her. Elodie's soft, she'll believe it rather than push. They were discussing erasing me, fleeing the country, and manipulating my granddaughter, all in the same casual business tone people use discussing vacation plans. The recording ended at 9:17 p.m. Brent had planned 18 hours between locking me away and fleeing the country forever, but he'd made one fatal miscalculation. He'd scheduled his perfect crime for Tuesday, and I'd scheduled his complete destruction for the same day. 4 hours earlier, his perfect crime, my perfect destruction. Both scheduled for the same Tuesday morning, 4 hours apart. At timestamp 68 minutes, a young woman's voice joined the conversation, and my heart stopped because it sounded exactly like Elodie asking about money transfers. Door opening on the recording, footsteps, then, sorry to interrupt, quick question about the wire transfer documentation. The voice, 25 years old, female, confident, pitch and cadence matching my granddaughter's exactly. No, please, no. My hands froze on the kitchen table. Coffee going cold. Recording device suddenly weighing 1,000 pounds. Go ahead, Brent's voice said. Do we need separate authorization for the offshore accounts? The young woman asked. Or does the guardianship cover international transfers? The question demonstrated knowledge, complete knowledge. Offshore accounts, guardianship fraud, international money laundering. The entire conspiracy laid bare in one casual question. And it sounded exactly like Elodie's voice. My vision tunneled. The small apartment walls pressed in. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. Monday morning's cafe meeting replayed through my mind. Elodie's shock at seeing me healthy, her confusion about the lies, her questions about the shell company, her agreement to attend the hearing. All of it performance, all of it strategy. If she'd been in that conference room June 3rd, helping her parents plan offshore transfers and guardianship fraud, then Monday's meeting was reconnaissance, figuring out how much I knew, what evidence I'd found, who I'd told. The voice, the question, the timing. Every piece pointed to Elodie standing in that conference room June 3rd, helping her parents plan to erase her grandmother. I'd shown her the Gallagher Properties documents Monday, told her about the hearing, given her 12 hours to warn Brent I was coming armed. Tears streamed down my face, not from fear or anger, from the biological impossibility of the woman I'd raised summers at the Magnolia House, who'd learned to arrange magnolias at 8 years old, who'd held my hand at Walter's funeral, being capable of this level of betrayal. She was the last one, the only one I'd thought was safe, pure. If Elodie had been complicit all along, if she'd been part of planning my permanent erasure while pretending concern about wedding, stress, then I had nothing left. No family, no legacy, just evidence and fury, and a courtroom showdown that would destroy everyone, including the granddaughter I'd tried to save. The recording continued. I couldn't stop it, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but sit paralyzed while my last shred of family loyalty crumbled. Then Brent's voice, "Nicole, the guardianship covers domestic transfers only. Marcus will handle offshore documentation." Nicole, not Elodie. Nicole. Marcus's voice followed. "My associate Nicole is coordinating documentation. She'll have everything ready Tuesday." I gasped, actually gasped, air flooding back into lungs that had forgotten how to work. Nicole, Marcus's junior associate. A young woman in her 20s who happened to have a voice pitched similarly to my granddaughter's, asking questions about legal documentation because she was the lawyer's assistant, not my betraying granddaughter. Not Elodie. How do you measure relief by the depth of horror that preceded it? Or by the 30 seconds when you believed your last ally was actually your destroyer? I'd suspected my son, accepted his betrayal, understood Simone's calculated cruelty. But for 30 seconds, I'd believed Elodie 25 years old, newly married. The child I'd protected and taught and loved had helped plan my permanent pharmaceutical erasure. Those 30 seconds were worse than discovering the theft, worse than hearing Brent discuss my institutionalization, worse than learning about the Wednesday flight to a country without extradition. Because for 30 seconds, I'd had nobody, not even her. The recording played on. Nicole asked more questions about documentation timelines. Brent answered professionally. Marcus provided legal clarifications. All business, all routine, all completely innocent of the horror I'd just experienced. I stopped the recording at 9:23 p.m., hands still shaking from the false alarm, and made a decision tomorrow in that courtroom. I'd make sure Elodie understood I'd never doubted her, even though for 30 seconds I had, and those 30 seconds showed me exactly how much I'd already lost. No matter how Tuesday ended, tomorrow I'd make sure she knew. But first, the recording had one more gift for me. At timestamp 72 minutes, a door slammed open on the recording and Elodie's voice, her actual voice, unmistakable this time, demanded, "Where is my grandmother?" I sat up straight, nearly knocking over cold coffee. "Elodie," Brent's voice said, sharp with surprise, "this is a private meeting." "Where is Grandma Connie?" Her voice was agitated, worried, rising. "I've called 17 times and her number is blocked." "Dad, what's going on? Why can't I reach her?" 17 times. She'd tried 17 times. "This isn't the time." "Then when is the time?" Elodie interrupted. "I saw her at the venue last week. She looked confused but not sick." "What's really happening?" My hands pressed flat against the kitchen table, grounding myself in reality, because this was real. This was my granddaughter on June 3rd, 1 week before the wedding, bursting into their conspiracy meeting, demanding answers. "Honey, your father's in a business meeting." Simone's voice cut in, smooth and maternal. "Mom said memory problems," Elodie continued, ignoring her. But Grandma was always sharp. Something's wrong. I want to see her. Right now. Tell me where she is. She'd been fighting for me, calling, questioning, refusing to believe their lies. And I'd spent 30 seconds thinking she'd betrayed me. Elodie, please, Brent said, voice tight with barely controlled frustration. No, not until you explain why my grandmother's phone is suddenly disconnected and why you keep making excuses every time I ask about her. Sweetheart. Simone's voice shifted, becoming concerned mother, perfectly calibrated manipulation I'd heard a dozen times. Your grandmother had a small stroke Tuesday. She's resting at home. Doctor's orders, no visitors. The lie came so smoothly, so perfectly timed, so devastatingly effective. A stroke, Elodie's voice cracked. Why didn't anyone tell me? We didn't want to worry you during wedding preparations. She's stable, resting comfortably. We're managing her care. I should visit her. No visitors right now. Doctor's orders, Simone repeated firmly. You focus on your wedding. She wouldn't want you worrying during the happiest time of your life. Silence on the recording. I could hear Elodie breathing, processing, wanting to believe her parents wouldn't lie about something this important. Can I at least call her? She needs quiet rest, honey. No phones, no stress. Give her a week to recover. After your honeymoon, we'll arrange a visit. Another lie. After the honeymoon. I'd be locked in Pinehurst memory care, chemically sedated, and they'd be on a plane to a country without extradition. Okay, Elodie said softly, voice small with worry and trust. Okay, I'll send flowers. Can you tell her I love her? Of course, sweetheart. Footsteps. Door opening and closing. Elodie leaving, believing her grandmother had a stroke, believing her parents were caring and protective, believing the lies, because why wouldn't you believe your family? Then Brent's voice, handled. She'll stay out of it now. Told you the stroke story would work, Simone replied. She's too trusting. Always has been. Keep her distracted with wedding details through next week. By the time she figures anything out, we're gone and Mom's locked away. They'd turned her love into a cage for me, and my silence into abandonment for her. And tomorrow we'd both learn we'd been prisoners of the same lie. The conspiracy hadn't just targeted me. It had targeted both of us, separated grandmother and granddaughter through blocked calls and fabricated illnesses, manipulated Elodie's protective love into a weapon of isolation, made her unknowing accomplice to my erasure. We were both victims, both imprisoned by the same family destroyers, both fighting for each other without knowing the other was fighting back. I stopped the recording at 9:45 p.m. and called Desmond. Tomorrow morning, I said. Elodie sits in that gallery thinking her parents are decent people and her grandmother had a stroke. By noon, she'll know the truth about everyone, including that I never abandoned her and she never stopped fighting for me. Desmond agreed to the plan. Elodie needed to hear it first. Alone. From me. Elodie arrived at the waterfront cafe at 7:15 Tuesday morning, looking confused about my urgent text, and I slid the recording device across the table before she could sit down. Grandma, what? There's a guardianship hearing this morning, I said quietly. Your parents filed it. 10 a.m., Charleston County Family Court. Her confusion deepened. Guardianship. Everything they told you about my health, my confusion, my memory problems. It was planned, documented lies. This recording proves it. What recording? June 3rd, your father's office. Listen to all of it before you speak. I pressed play. Brent's voice filled the small table space between us. Guardianship hearing June 10th. Judge Keating grants petition. I become legal guardian. 2 p.m. same day. Belvedere purchase closes. Elodie's face froze. That's Dad's voice, she whispered. That's really him. Keep listening. The recording continued. Brent explaining institutional plans. Simone discussing Pinehurst memory care. Marcus detailing offshore accounts. Elodie's expression cycled through disbelief, horror, fury. Guardianship granted Tuesday morning, Brent's recorded voice said. She's in Pinehurst by 4 p.m. Tuesday. Medication protocol begins immediately. Wednesday morning, we board the plane. They were going to lock you away. Elodie's voice cracked. Drug you. And flee the country with $65 million while you believed I was too sick to attend your wedding. Recording excerpt continued. Brent, she'll be medicated, compliant, locked away. Simone, $32 million. Marcus, Wednesday morning departure before anyone questions the guardianship. Elodie's hands shook. This is real. This is actually them planning to erase me, legally, financially, physically, while making you think you'd lost me to illness. I fast-forwarded to timestamp 72 minutes, door slamming open. Elodie's own voice, younger by a week, desperate. Where's Grandma Connie? I've called 17 times. She gasped, hearing herself. Her recorded voice continued. I saw her last week. She looked confused, but not sick. What's really happening? Then Simone, sweetheart, your grandmother had a small stroke Tuesday. She's resting at home. Doctor's orders, no visitors. She lied, Elodie whispered, tears streaming. Mom looked me in the eyes and lied about a stroke. To stop you from finding me, to keep us apart. Her recorded voice. Trusting and worried. Can I at least call her? Simone's response, she needs quiet rest, no phones, no stress. Then, after the door closed, Brent laughing, handled, she'll stay out of it now. Simone, she's too trusting, always has been. I watched my granddaughter age 5 years in 30 minutes, childhood ending at a cafe table on a Tuesday morning. Listening to her parents plan to erase the woman who raised them both. I was fighting for you, Elodie said, voice breaking. I was trying to find you, and they… She stopped, wiped tears roughly. They kept us apart, blocked calls, fabricated stories, made us think we'd abandoned each other. We were both victims, both fighting for each other while they built walls between us. Elodie stopped the recording, her expression shifting from devastation to something harder, colder, infinitely more dangerous. What time is the hearing? 10 a.m. I'm attending. Elodie, not as observer, as witness. Her voice steadied, tears drying into fury. I can testify they lied about your health, that you were always competent, always sharp, that they fabricated medical conditions and blocked family communication. You don't have to. They tried to steal you from me. She met my eyes, and I saw Walter's steel in her gaze. They planned to lock you away, drug you until you forgot your own name, and flee the country while I believed you were too sick to see me. Now I'm going to help you take everything from them. 25 years old, 3 days married, choosing grandmother over parents without hesitation. The hearing could destroy your relationship with them forever, I said. They destroyed it the moment they decided I was too trusting to matter. She stood. What time do we meet your attorney? We left the cafe at 8 a.m., 2 hours before the hearing. Elodie walked beside me toward Desmond's office with the focused calm of someone who'd just chosen sides in a war and chosen the side her parents had tried to destroy. They'd lose their daughter the same morning they lost everything else. The courthouse steps felt solid beneath my heels at 9:55 a.m. Elodie walked on my right, chin high despite the red around her eyes. Desmond carried his briefcase on my left, the audio device tucked inside next to 17 exhibits. Ready, I asked her. She squeezed my hand. Let's end this. Courtroom 4B smelled like old wood and anxiety. Brent sat at the petitioner's table with Russell Briggs, his posture confident, until he saw us. His face drained of color when Elodie took the seat directly behind me. Simone's head snapped up. What is she doing here? Judge Marlo Keating entered before anyone could answer. All rise. Briggs stood. Your Honor, I move to exclude. You'll move nothing until I call for motions. Counselor? Judge Keating adjusted his glasses. This is in re guardianship of Constance Hewitt. Mr. Briggs, present your case. Briggs launched into his prepared statement. Declining mental capacity, unsafe living conditions, concerned families seeking protective intervention. The same lies dressed up in legal language. I watched Brent's reflection in the courtroom window. He kept glancing back at Elodie, confusion warring with calculation on his face. Mrs. Hewitt appears quite lucid today, Judge Keating observed. Intermittent competence is characteristic of her condition, Briggs said smoothly. We have medical documentation from Dr. Leonard Upshaw, whose Virginia medical license was suspended 3 weeks ago for fraudulent evaluations. Desmond interjected. Desmond Thornton for the respondent. Your Honor, we have court records from Norfolk. The first crack appeared in Briggs's composure. Judge Keating accepted the document. His eyebrows climbed as he read. Mr. Briggs, did you verify your expert's credentials? We relied on his representations. Perhaps you should rely on facts instead. The judge's tone could have frozen vodka. Continue, Mr. Thornton. Desmond approached the bench. We have evidence this petition is part of a criminal conspiracy to defraud Mrs. Hewitt of her property. With the court's permission, I'd like to play a recording obtained by Mrs. Hewitt's private investigator. Objection! Briggs was on his feet. Hearsay, lack of foundation, improper. Overruled. I'll hear it. Desmond pressed play. Brent's voice filled the courtroom. The judge will institutionalize her Wednesday. Pinehurst has the room ready. Simone's response, and the Wednesday flight to Grand Cayman. Booked. Once the accounts transfer, we're gone. I watched my son's face turn gray. The recording played for 90 seconds. Every damning word. The guardianship fraud. The offshore accounts. The plan to sedate and institutionalize me. The $65 million Belvedere sale. Elodie's voice near the end. Grandmother wouldn't want you to do this. Brent cutting her off. Your grandmother had a stroke. She's not who you remember. The lie that had kept Elodie away from me. The lie that had almost worked. Judge Keating's knuckles were white on his gavel. Mr. Hewitt, do you recognize those voices? Brent's lawyer tried to intervene, but Brent spoke. I can explain. I'm sure you'll have opportunity. The judge nodded toward the back of the courtroom. Agents? 2 people in dark suits stood from the gallery. FBI credentials appeared in their hands. Brent Hewitt, Simone Hewitt. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and wire fraud. The female agent's voice was professional. Final. You have the right to remain silent. The courtroom erupted. Briggs was shouting about procedure. Simone was crying. Guards moved forward with handcuffs. I stood as they cuffed Brent. Our eyes met across 12 feet of scarred wooden floor. You said I'd never know what happened. I told him. You were wrong. Elodie's hand found mine as they led her parents away. Through the courtroom windows, I could see news cameras gathering on the courthouse steps. By noon, everyone would know. The Hewitts' attempted theft, the FBI arrests, the grandmother who'd fought back. But first, I had a hotel empire to rebuild. 2 men in expensive European suits intercepted us in the courthouse hallway at 1:15, and the lead one's accent Swiss-German. Precise and furious, announced he was from Belvedere International before his business card did. I'm Klaus Hoffman, Belvedere Acquisition Director. He was 50-something with steel gray hair and a watch that cost more than most cars. Why are our business partners in FBI custody? The second man stepped forward, younger, French accent clipped. Jean-Marc Bisset, Belvedere Legal Counsel. Does the transaction proceed? Closing is scheduled for 2 o'clock. Desmond's expression didn't change. Gentlemen, there is no transaction. Hoffman's jaw tightened. We've conducted 6 weeks of due diligence. $65 million. Preliminary agreement signed. Down payment transferred. My son didn't own what he contracted to sell, I said. Bisset pulled documents from his briefcase. He signed as principal owner of Whispering Pines Holdings. 2 days ago, I legally separated the Magnolia House trademark, brand identity, reservation systems, and operating contracts from Whispering Pines. Desmond interrupted. They're now in a new entity, solely in Mrs. Hewitt's name. The hallway smelled like floor polish and expensive cologne. Through the windows, photographers still gathered on the courthouse steps. Hoffman's face paled. The assets we valued at $65 million are empty buildings. With mortgages, Desmond said. You contracted to buy physical properties. The brand that makes them profitable, Mrs. Hewitt owns separately. Asset breakdown. Buildings plus mortgages equaled $18 million. Brand plus systems equaled $47 million. Total contracted equaled $65 million. Actual deliverable equaled $15 million shells. Bissette's French accent thickened. When was the trademark separation executed? Sunday afternoon. Perfectly legal corporate restructuring. Before our down payment cleared. Hoffman's voice could cut glass. You knew. I knew my son was stealing my company and planning to flee with your money, I said. I prevented both. Hoffman pulled out the preliminary agreement, hands shaking. He represented these assets as his to sell, fraudulent representations. Which is why the FBI arrested him, Desmond said. The realization spread across their faces like spilled ink. They weren't just failed buyers, they were victims. Brent had conned them too. We paid $3.5 million, Bissett said quietly, for worthless assets. He was fleeing to Grand Cayman Wednesday morning with your money, I told them. You're welcome. Hoffman's composure cracked. Transaction terminated, effective immediately. We will recover our $3.5 million. From whom? Desmond asked. From him. Bissett gestured toward where Brent had been led away. Civil suit, fraud, misrepresentation, breach. Every legal remedy. I almost felt sorry for them. He's facing federal wire fraud charges, I said. Elder exploitation, conspiracy. His assets are frozen. 15 to 20 years in federal prison. I paused. You'll be in line behind the government. Good luck. They'd flown across an ocean to buy an empire and discovered they'd contracted for empty warehouses, Brent's final victims in a con that collapsed before the ink could dry. Hoffman's phone buzzed. He glanced at Bissett. Zurich wants a briefing. Tell them no deal, Bissett said. No assets, no transaction, just fraud. They gathered their documents, trying to maintain dignity while their world burned. The 2 o'clock closing, $65 million. Transferring my legacy to strangers would never occur. Hoffman and Bissett walked toward the elevator at 143, suits perfect and faces ruined, carrying briefcases that should have held closing documents. Instead, they carried proof they'd been conned by a man already in handcuffs. Platform lawsuits against a defendant headed to federal prison. The elevator doors closed on their fury. Walking through the Magnolia House lobby 1 week after the arrests felt different. Staff looked at me not as confused elderly woman or estranged family member, but as the owner I'd secretly been for 35 years. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Fresh magnolias perfumed the air from vases on every surface. Elodie walked beside me, her presence announcing this was family business now. Derek Rhodes crossed the lobby quickly, face flushed. Mrs. Hewitt, I owe you the deepest apology. If I'd known. You followed orders from who you thought was your employer, I interrupted gently. That's not complicity, Derek. But the wedding, turning you away from your own. My son is very skilled at making good people do harmful things without knowing. I touched his arm. You're not at fault. Relief flooded his features. Thank you. By 10:30, 83 employees had gathered in the grand ballroom. Housekeepers in crisp uniforms, chefs in whites, concierges, valets, kitchen staff. The entire team that made this hotel function. I stood at the front, Elodie on my right, Celeste on my left. Thank you for coming, I began. Most of you know me as Brent Hewitt's mother. Some remember me from years ago. Today, I'm here to tell you the truth. The room went silent. I've owned the Magnolia House since 1991 through Whispering Pines Holdings, LLC. My son never did. Shock rippled through the crowd like wind across water. The changes he implemented. The invoices he approved. Those were fraud, and he's facing federal prosecution. I let that sink in. This hotel was built on integrity. We're returning to that standard today. 83 faces stared at me, housekeepers, concierges, chefs, valets, all processing that the woman Brent called confused was the name on their paychecks. The owner of the building they maintained, the employer they'd served without knowing. A housekeeper in the third row raised her hand tentatively. What happens to us? You keep your jobs, your real jobs, not the fraudulent positions my son invented. I gestured to Celeste. Under honest management. Celeste stood straighter, and I continued. Celeste Valentine documented every fraudulent transaction for 3 months. When my son threatened her job for questioning invoices, she kept copies anyway. I looked at her. Her 47 pieces of evidence became the foundation of the federal prosecution. Murmurs spread through the staff. She risked her career, her livelihood, her professional reputation to protect this hotel and expose criminals. My voice strengthened. That's not just competence, that's integrity. Applause started in the back row, spread forward. Celeste's eyes glistened. Some loyalty is quiet, kept in manila envelopes and dated notes. Waiting for the moment, truth matters more than safety. Which is why, I said when the applause died, I'm promoting Celeste to Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately. Celeste's head snapped toward me. Mrs. Hewitt, you'll oversee all hotel operations, report directly to me, and help rebuild what my son tried to destroy. I smiled. You've earned this 100 times over. The applause returned, louder this time. Elodie stepped forward. I'm joining the business too. Her voice carried across the ballroom. Grandma and Celeste are going to teach me what real integrity looks like, what my parents definitely didn't. Laughter mixed with the applause, warm. Relieved. Hopeful. I addressed the staff one final time. Brent's fraudulent policies are reversed as of today. Transparent financial reporting resumes. If you see something wrong, you report it to Celeste, to me, to authorities if needed. No retaliation, no secrets. I paused. We're starting fresh, built on the foundation Walter Hewitt established 40 years ago. Honesty, quality, service. The staff meeting ended at 11:15 with applause that felt like absolution. Celeste walked me to the owner's office, my office, finally acknowledged, and we stood at the window overlooking Charleston, watching the hotel that had survived 35 years of secrecy and one son's betrayal begin its first honest chapter in months. Elodie joined us, her reflection in the glass, young and determined. What happens now? She asked. I looked at the city Walter and I had chosen, the business we'd built, the legacy I'd nearly lost. Now, I said, we rebuild, together. Elodie's suitcases filled my small apartment's second bedroom 3 weeks after the arrests, and watching her unpack felt like reclaiming family, one folded sweater at a time. I'm done with them, she said, and take away to hanging dresses in the closet. I meant what I said in that courtroom. I sat on the bed Walter and I had bought 40 years ago, watching this 25-year-old woman choose me over the parents who'd raised her. You don't have to. This is home now. She turned, eyes clear. You and the hotel, and building something honest. We cooked dinner together that night, pasta with tomatoes from the farmer's market, garlic bread warming in the oven. She asked questions about occupancy rates, reservation systems, vendor contracts. I taught her what Walter had taught me. Hospitality is about details that make people feel valued. Grandma, teach me everything, she said over wine at my tiny kitchen table. I want to learn the business the right way. The right way. Not Brent's way. Not shortcuts or fraud or schemes. Your grandfather built this empire on integrity, I told her. Every decision, every hire, every contract, he asked if he could defend it in court and sleep at night. Both had to be yes. She took notes on her phone, asking follow-up questions like a graduate student. 2 days later, she showed me paperwork over breakfast. I changed my name. She slid the court order across the table. Elodie Rose Valentine, not Hewitt anymore. I stared at the document. Legal name change, filed and approved. I don't want money they stole, she continued. I don't want the house they bought with fraud. I filed for complete financial independence. Declined all inheritance rights from them. She paused. The wedding gifts, the ones purchased with your money. I returned them and donated everything to an elder abuse prevention charity. My throat tightened. Your family, you and Grandpa Walter's legacy, that's the only family I claim now. She'd chosen a new name, Valentine, honoring the hotel manager who risked everything rather than the parents who stole it. And that choice told me everything about who my granddaughter had become. "Celeste knows," I asked. "I asked her permission first." She cried. Elodie smiled. Good tears. August arrived with brutal southern heat. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for the 15th. We sat in the federal courtroom at 9:30, dressed in business suits. Brent and Simone entered in orange jumpsuits, hands cuffed, faces hollow from 2 months in county detention. The judge was efficient. "Mr. Hewitt, you orchestrated systematic fraud against your own mother, attempted to institutionalize her through falsified medical evidence, and conspired to steal $65 million in assets. 18 years federal custody." Brent's shoulders slumped. "Mrs. Simone Hewitt, you participated in conspiracy to commit elder exploitation, wire fraud, and financial abuse. 20 years federal custody." Simone didn't react. Brent turned as guards approached. "Elodie, I have nothing to say to you," she said quietly. They were led away separately. No looking back. No final words. The courtroom emptied quickly. Justice isn't always satisfying. I told LOD on the courthouse steps, but it's final. Some families are born. Some are chosen. The strongest are built from the rubble of the ones that tried to destroy you. We walked through Charleston toward the hotel. Derek Rhodes passed us on the street, now head of security, heading to his shift. Celeste texted about fall reservation increases. Desmond was filing the last legal paperwork closing Brent's criminal cases. Everyone who'd protected us during the conspiracy was part of the honest future. "Do you regret it?" Elodie asked, taking my arm. "Losing him." I considered that. I regret raising someone who could plan that. But I don't regret stopping him. Then we build something better. Her grip tightened. You, me, Celeste, and everyone who chose truth. That's the real family. We reached the Magnolia House at 4:30 on an August afternoon, 35 years after Walter and I first opened the doors. Elodie Valentine, my granddaughter, my business partner, my chosen family, held the door for me. And we walked inside together to build an empire on the foundation Brent had tried to steal, but never understood integrity that can't be forged, love that can't be bought, and justice that always, eventually, comes home. 6 months after watching my son led away in handcuffs, I walked through the Magnolia House lobby on a December morning and felt something I hadn't experienced in that space for years: belonging. The marble floors gleamed under winter sunlight streaming through tall windows. Fresh evergreen garlands draped the reception desk, releasing pine scent with every passing guest. Elodie carried folders for our quarterly business review. Celeste walked beside me, reviewing operations reports on her tablet. "Morning, Mrs. Hewitt." The front desk manager smiled warmly. "Conference room is ready for your quarterly review." "Thank you, Marcus." Same lobby where I'd been humiliated in June. Same chandeliers, same reception desk, same marble I'd crossed with Desmond while staff whispered. Now they greeted me as owner, not confused grandmother. "Revenue's up 12% since the transparency reforms," LOD said, settling into the conference room. "Celeste's operations changes are working." Celeste pulled up spreadsheets. Staff morale, highest it's been in years. Honesty pays dividends, literally. Guest satisfaction scores jumped 9 points. We reviewed finances, occupancy rates, vendor contracts, everything Brent had corrupted, now restored to Walter's original standards. A knock interrupted us. Derek Rhodes stood in the doorway, security uniform crisp, posture professional. "Mrs. Hewitt, wanted to update you on new security protocols." He stepped inside. "Protecting what's yours now." The same man who'd blocked my entrance to Elodie's wedding now reported directly to me. I'd promoted him to head of security in October, trusting that good people manipulated by bad leadership deserve second chances. "Thank you, Derek. How's the team adjusting?" "Well, ma'am," he hesitated. "I also wanted to say you gave me a chance after I followed the wrong orders. That's real leadership. You were doing your job, Derek. Now you're doing it for the right employer." After he left, Elodie looked at me. "You forgave him completely. No hesitation. He was a tool, not the architect. 6 months between June and December. Between humiliation and restoration. Between the woman they tried to erase and the owner they couldn't destroy. Measured in handcuffs. Courtrooms. And the quiet reconstruction of self-worth. That evening, Elodie and I stood on the executive suite balcony overlooking Charleston Harbor. December air carried salt and cold, harbor lights reflecting on dark water. The city Walter and I had chosen spread below us, twinkling and alive. "Do you miss him?" Elodie asked quietly. "Your son." I considered the question honestly. I miss who I thought he was, but that person never really existed. "Do you regret it stopping him?" "I regret raising someone capable of planning that." I wrapped my shawl tighter. "But I don't regret protecting what Walter and I built, or protecting you." She leaned against the railing. "You taught me family isn't blood. It's who shows up when blood fails you." "Your grandfather taught me that first." I smiled, remembering Walter. "When my parents disowned me for marrying a hotel clerk instead of their chosen banker," Walter said, "we'll build our own family. Better than the one that couldn't see your worth." And you did. And now you're doing the same. 35 years I'd hidden ownership to protect what I'd built. 6 months since I'd claimed it publicly. And one perfect December evening proving that truth, no matter how long delayed, eventually finds its rightful home. "I'm updating my will," I told her. "Everything goes to Elodie Valentine, with Celeste as co-trustee." She turned sharply. "Grandma!" "Not Elodie Hewitt." I held her gaze. "You chose your name. You chose your family. You chose truth. This empire goes to someone who understands what it's built on." "You already gave me everything that matters." Her voice caught. "You taught me what integrity looks like. And now you'll teach the next generation." I touched her hand. "Celeste will guide operations. You'll learn from the best. And when I'm gone, you'll run this place exactly the way Walter would have wanted. Honest, excellent, kind." The harbor lights reflected in the windows as night settled over Charleston, and I thought about beginnings and endings. About the family I'd lost and the one I'd found. About a son in federal prison and a granddaughter standing beside me learning to run an empire built on integrity. Some stories end with justice. The lucky ones end with peace. I stood at the Magnolia House entrance on a January evening in 2027, 7 months after my son's arrest, holding a guest list with my name at the top. But this time, I was the one deciding who walked through the doors. The marble floors gleamed under chandelier light. Winter jasmine perfumed the air. Elodie checked her watch, smoothing her cocktail dress. "Same entrance where this all started," she said. "Different ending, though. 1 year since you officially joined the business." I adjusted the guest list. Feels like a lifetime. Same ballroom where her wedding should have happened. Same entrance where Derek had blocked me. Tonight the guest list held different names. Desmond, Celeste, the FBI agents who'd helped, local business leaders who now respected me. No Brent, no Simone, just chosen family. At 6:30, guests began arriving. I positioned myself exactly where Derek had stood 7 months earlier, where he'd told me my name wasn't on the list. Now I welcomed each person by name. "Desmond, so glad you're here. Celeste, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Magnolia House." Derek stood nearby in his security uniform, protecting rather than excluding. Our eyes met briefly. "Never imagined 7 months ago I'd be working for you," he said quietly. "Life has a way of correcting itself. Derek, you're on the right side now." 7 months between being turned away and welcoming guests measured not in days, but in handcuffs, courtrooms, and the slow reconstruction of a woman they'd tried to erase. By 7:30, the ballroom filled with warm voices and champagne. Celeste stood to speak, glass raised. "To integrity, the only foundation that lasts." This hotel's reputation was nearly destroyed by fraud. But Elodie and Constance proved that truth rebuilds what lies tried to tear down. Applause rippled through the room. Desmond raised his glass. To Constance Hewitt, who proved that truth always wins, even when it takes decades. even when the people trying to destroy you are your own blood. Elodie stood last, young and poised. To my grandmother, who taught me family is what you build, not what you're born with. Who showed me that integrity matters more than inheritance.
She found my eyes.
You gave me a legacy worth having. I raised my glass to her, tears feeling like release rather than pain. They say you can't go home again, but what they don't tell you is sometimes you have to destroy home and rebuild it before you recognize where you belong. At 9 o'clock, as guests departed, I stood at the entrance one final time. Elodie appeared beside me, wrapping her shawl against January cold. Ready to go home, Grandma, in a moment. I looked at the guest list. My name, Constance E. Hewitt, owner, the Magnolia House. I want to stand here one more minute, right where it all began. Same marble, same doorway, same chandeliers. 7 months ago, I'd been blocked from this entrance. I wanted it told my name wasn't on the list. Tonight, I'd welcomed 50 people through it as owner. 7 months ago, I was turned away from this door, I said. Tonight, I welcomed guests through it. That's not just victory, Elodie. That's poetry. She linked her arm through mine. Then let's go write the next chapter. We walked toward the exit together, past the lobby where I'd been humiliated, through the doors I now controlled. The Charleston night air smelled like salt and jasmine, cold and clean. I paused at the threshold one final time, looking back at the hotel Walter and I had built, that Brent had tried to steal, that Elodie would someday run. The chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors. Everything looked exactly as it had 7 months ago, when Derek had turned me away. But everything had changed. I stood at the Magnolia House entrance on a January night, 65 years old, and still learning that some battles take decades to win. Some families must be chosen rather than born. And some stories that begin with humiliation end with a woman standing in her own doorway, holding a guest list with her own name at the top. Finally, honestly, home. And to you listening to my story, remember, this family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who chooses you when blood betrays you. Looking back, I made mistakes along the way. I trusted too completely, hid my ownership for too long, and almost waited too late to fight back. Don't make my mistake of thinking silence equals safety. If I'd confronted the warning signs earlier, the forged invoices, the fake vendors, the manipulation, I might have stopped this before it reached my granddaughter's wedding day. Secrets, even protective ones, can become weapons in the wrong hands. But here's what this revenge story taught me. Justice delayed isn't justice denied. It took me 65 years to learn that integrity outlasts deception, that truth always surfaces eventually, and that starting over at any age is possible. When people ask if this is really a revenge story, I tell them, no, it's a restoration story. I believe God put me through this trial to show others that betrayal doesn't define you. Strength has no expiration date, and that chosen family can heal what blood family breaks. Elodie choosing me over her parents wasn't just loyalty, it was grace. I didn't earn, but desperately needed. What did you think of my story? Did you see the signs I missed? Would you have fought back or walked away? Leave a comment and tell me your thoughts. If this revenge story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to reclaim what's yours. And subscribe to True Tales for more stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary betrayals and finding their way back. Thank you for staying until the very end. Your time means everything. One final note. While certain details have been adjusted for storytelling purposes, the heart of this story, the message about courage, family, and justice is what truly matters.